Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 28 of the Friday Nightmares podcast. On this episode, we will be discussing franchise remakes and comparing them to their originals. And I am your host, Smokeshow Crawford, coming to you from Swartz Creek, Ontario, Michigan, Canada.
The new city
The
and
new
state
city.
and province that's been made in North America, in case people weren't aware.
And joining me, as always, is the wonderful host.
Heather Powell coming to you from Waterdown, Ontario, Michigan, North American, United States, South Africa, Australia, Canada. Everyone who's listening to this show for the first time are like, these guys aren't good with geography.
They don't know where they live.
Like, what are they talking about? So just be clear, if this is your first time, I am from Waterdown, Ontario, Canada, and Scott is indeed from Swartz Creek, Michigan. If you haven't heard of it, it's because it doesn't matter. He's about an hour and a half outside of Detroit.
Yeah, but wow, never. I guess you're not wrong though. Never heard of it. We're right next to Flint, Michigan.
See, I gave Detroit because I figured that's a better thing to be associated with than Flint.
You're not wrong.
Like, I was trying to help you. I was trying to help brother out, Scotty.
Oh, my bad.
You're like, no, I live near Flint. I want everyone to know that my water sucks, just in case you were unsure.
Hey, my water doesn't suck, smartass. You know that.
That's true. Like when I went there and I'm like, so can you drink the water, Scotty? Is that a thing? So here in Ontario, we have opened up certain populated areas to go out to restaurants. So I did that last night, which I'm feeling pretty high on today. And I ordered a liter of cider at this establishment. And like a champ, I drank the entire thing and then some. Because that's how I roll.
I have to say that is impressive because you sent me a picture of that freaking glass or the freaking mug, and it's like the picture with you holding it. It's like it covers your whole upper torso when you're holding it. And all you see is your face above it.
I know. It was like this little child holding something, like like you when you hold something for the first time.
Oh, you smart ass.
You're so close to the ground, so I feel like
I'm the same height as you. Damn it.
Are you though?
I am. Are
you? It's been over a year since I've seen you in person.
Oh, so I've shrunk.
You haven't shrunk? That happens as you get older, Scott. By the way, you begin to shrink. So I'm just not sure in this last year.
That's it. I quit.
So we're taking applications for another host for the podcast. If you are not aware, Scott and I did a commentary on the movie Valentine from 2001 on Valentine's Day, no less, which has been uploaded to the Legion Patreon. Not a member of Legion Patreon? Well, what are you waiting for? It's $3 a month, and I am a member, and I think Scott's going to be a member.
Yeah, I will be a member at the by next week.
By next week, Scott will be a member. Lots of cool stuff on there. There's a lot of panels that we do. There's actually a panel going on tomorrow that our Legion podcasters are going to be on. I don't really know what they're talking about, though.
They're talking about, I think it was like introductory horror or like something to show, like way to get kids into horror films.
That's awesome. So lots of good stuff going on the Legion Podcast Network that we are proud members of under the Kill the Cast feed with Jerry, Jay, and Kenneth. So if this is your first time listening, I did want to promote that out to you guys. And also that Scott and I did that fun little thing for Legion Patreon. And personally, I think the commentary was actually quite good.
Yeah, it was, for one, it was a lot of fun to do. And then, yeah, I think we did pretty damn well. I mean, you pretty much went like scene by scene giving descriptions as the movie was going on, which was great. And I just kind of made jokes and commented here and there. I was pretty much just kind of following you at that point, but it was a lot of fun.
Well, and I listen a lot to TGIF fan podcast, Friday the 13th fan podcast, which is hosted by Christian and Vince, two fellow Canadians that live right where I do. Quite literally, like it's the one few times that you can say a whole bunch of Canadians live near each other and kind of know each other. And they do a really good job of doing commentaries. And I said to Scott, like, cut it down so that you cannot watch the movie and watch. Well, you could, but it's not going to link up because there's a lot of boring dialogue in Valentine. As we found out that obviously there's not much to do. I think at one point I was having a snack and Scott was doing his vape. Unless you want to listen to us do that, which we figure is pretty fucking boring. Scott did edit that out. So we'll be doing fun things like that for the Legion Patreon. Once a month, we'll be doing commentaries. Our next commentary will be
Lost After Dark.
Lost After Dark, which was written by our boss, Bo. So he'll actually be on the episode with us, which should be nice because we can't say anything mean about it. We're gonna have to only say nice things.
You can't say anything mean about it. We'll see. I'm gonna be tearing it apart, Bo. You hear that?
You're gonna be like, "Who wrote this garbage?
What the hell? Who wrote this type of dialogue? Jeez,
He must
Bo.
be from some southern dude that lives in Tennessee." And
Just
like
kidding,
Crackle
Bo.
Barrel.
We love you. Don't fire me.
Yeah, just Scott. Don't fire Scott. But yeah, we're going to be doing a lot of fun things on the Legion Patreon. So please, if you're not a member, it's $3 a month. And what I actually really liked about it was that I was able to select Canadian for
nice.
the $3, which is always nice when that happens.
Yeah, that's very rare.
And I don't have to do the fucking conversion.
Yeah.
But what's going on with you, Scotty? I'm missing movie theaters. I don't know about you, man, but it's starting to really get to me.
Yeah, I'll say because I think as everybody knows, the theaters are open here, but there just hasn't been anything worth me wanting to go see lately. But they did open up restaurants and everything again here. It's at 25% capacity, which means that
Scott and his ego can sit in the restaurant at any given time.
My ego.
I know.
I'll say out of the two of us, who has the ego? Come on now.
Well, definitely Biff the cat.
Yeah. But now that the restaurants are open, I'm not sure on the rules with theaters, but I'm hoping that they're allowing sales of concessions and allowing you to eat in theaters and stuff like that again, because we weren't allowed to do that before that.
Oh man, see, that's the whole theater experience, is me eating popcorn like I'm a starving person that hasn't ate in 15 years,
right?
And stuffing it into my face and then sipping soda or pop, whatever part of Canada or United States you live in and how you call it. Like that is like my whole movie going experience is looking like a slob eating.
Right. Well, and also it's like the concession stands, like that's how theaters make their profit.
Hey, I've been buying movie theater popcorn and pop throughout this entire thing.
Yeah, I say you've been supporting your theater. I wish our theaters would do that, but the only one that's doing that is like a 40-minute drive from my house, and by the time I get it home, it'd be pointless.
Oh yeah, you're not going to drive out 40 minutes to get popcorn and shit. That makes absolutely no sense. Well, theaters are not open here. Even in the red zone that we're in, theaters unfortunately cannot open. So I'm hoping and praying that by the time motherfucking Spiral and Candyman comes out this year, I will be in the movie theater.
If not, I'll tell you how good they are.
Shut the fuck up, Scott. You know what made me think of this is, you know how you get those Facebook memories on your phone. So anyone here that has Facebook is probably aware that you'll like wake up and you'll turn on your phone. I don't know. I keep my phone off at night because no one's calling me because I'm so lonely. So lonely. Anyway. So I turn on my phone and I'll go to Facebook and it'll be like, oh, a year ago or 3 years ago. And last year, today, I went and saw Fantasy Island.
Oh, was that
Welcome
today?
to Fantasy Island. And like, it was such a movie that was so Blumhouse. It was like, it was such a fucking basic bitch film. I remember how many people shit on that movie and how many people were like, oh, it's fucking horrible. It's so bad. Well, what did you think walking into it?
Right. Like
it was the same cast from Truth or Dare. It's like they just recasted them all.
Yeah, because I think I went and seen it a week or a couple days before you, but I guess I didn't share it on Facebook to get the memory. But yeah, like I went in expecting just some like easy to watch, simple film that I expected to just think was okay. But you know, I'm all about supporting horror films in theaters, and like I'm also a cheapskate and do the $5 matinees on the weekends, and that like saves me a bunch of money usually.
You take yourself out.
Damn right. Well, I have no one else to go with. I'll go by myself. Screw it.
He's like, I don't need no person to go with me. I don't need that.
And that's when I get my bucket of popcorn, I cut a hole in it, put my dick in it, and then I'm like surprised when I reach the bottom. Hey!
As long as the butter doesn't burn.
You don't like the burn sensation?
Oh dear! Love that feeling. Oh dear, Scotty! Oh dear! Oh dear! I'm concerned. I'm concerned by this conversation. And Scott and I have passed our 1 year of our convention. You remember convention, Scott? Like you would go places and there was people and you could talk to them.
Yeah, and you could cross borders and stuff, and like we could actually hang out in person. Boy, those were the times.
It's funny. We do another podcast. We do a podcast called "It's Not Horror." Okay. And one of our colleagues on there was teasing Scott and I, like, oh, you guys at least got to visit each other 5 times. I'm like, well, it was 3. It wasn't, I don't know, kept saying 5. And I'm like, we didn't get to hang out 5 times.
Nope. We got 3 times. There was supposed to be like 4th and 5th and 6th and,
maybe more would have depended on how much Scott drove me crazy. But yes. Ideally, there was at least a handful more. Ideally. For sure.
And that just hasn't happened. And now it's been over a year since the last time we've seen each other in person. Like, I mean, obviously we see each other like face to face through these wonderful technology that we have, but yeah, like it's been over a year since we hung out in person, which is kind of a bummer.
Well, not really, because I still share all my drunk episodes with you.
It's true, but it's much more fun experiencing the drunk episodes of Heather in person.
It was too funny. So I was at my girlfriend's place last night, and we had gone out for dinner, and we went back to her place, and I had planned on taking a cab home. She picked me up so I could take a cab home, and she's like, oh, like, you must hate the cab ride, because it's about a 20-minute cab ride, give or take, sometimes a little bit longer. And I'm like, no, I just call Scott and Brandon, and I make them talk to me the entire way home. And that's what I did last night.
That was a lot of fun.
Because it is awkward. And sometimes I find I end up then making really awkward conversation, and they don't want to talk to me. I don't want to talk to them, but we're sitting there in this uncomfortable silence. And so I just call. I just drunk dial. And hope for the best. So...
Well, you're usually courteous enough to give us a heads up, like, hey, getting a cab home, gonna call you guys shortly. We're like, all right.
That's true. In case they're too busy, on dates or whatever else they're doing at that time.
You want to see my date today?
Oh, Biffy.
Oh, no, that's Stormy.
Oh, Stormy. Oh, sorry, you have so many fucking cats. Scott, yet again, just to remind everyone, has 5 fucking cats. So I lose track. I think you should get the little kitty name tags.
I should get them like little cute bow ties with their names on them or something.
Oh my God, that would just be beyond adorable. And
they would shred them and hate them.
They'd be like, and then they'd be like, death to the Scott. Death to the
I'd be like, I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet, honestly.
All right, I guess we should get into these 2021 movies. I'm still saying it. But here's the thing about these 2021 movies. We didn't watch 16 this week. Scott and I have finally slowed down to, what did you say we have here, Scotty? 11?
I think there is about 11 or 10 or 11 of them.
Because Scott has watched 49 2021 movies. I have watched 43. Scott definitely is doubling down a lot harder than I am. I had to watch a billion fucking remakes and originals this week because I couldn't remember some of the originals. The only one I didn't have to rewatch was A Nightmare on Elm Street. That one I remembered enough, and I have seen enough that I did not need to rewatch it. But even Friday the 13th, I've only seen the original a handful of times, maybe 2 or 3 times, maybe.
Yep, because that was kind of the same with me. Like the only ones I didn't have to rewatch were Halloween, Child's Play, and Friday the 13th Part 2 and 3. I had to rewatch Part 1 because it's been a while since I've seen the first one. But yeah, so there was a few of them. So I had to watch Nightmare on Elm Street, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and the others as we went along. But yeah, it was definitely a lot. And next episode will probably also be a lot. But
it will be, because this is what Scott and I are like. This sounds like a good idea. We go and we do it, and we're like, why the fuck we do this?
This will be an easy episode. Oh shit, there's a lot to watch.
No, it's not easy. I don't know why we keep thinking it's easy. It's double the work.
Right.
That's actually what it is. It's fucking double the work. Anyway, so let's get into these 2021s. Stop our fucking bullshitting and get to for what the people showed up for. And what they showed up for is us to tell them what to watch and not to watch. So the first one is Reunion. I believe this is my pick. Yeah, I don't think Scotty watched this.
I did.
Oh, you did? See, I lose track of what you watched because all these fucking remakes, originals. Anyway, Reunion is a 95-minute runtime. It is basically about a pregnant woman who returns to her recently decreased grandparents' farm home to spend time with her estranged mother, who is also caregiving for her father, who has become extremely ill. And some crazy shit happens. There's a lot of flashbacks in this movie. There's a lot of kind of time jumps back and forth to, what happened in the past, what happened now. It is a little bit of a complicated plot line. It's a very artsy film. I warned Scotty that I did not think this was going to be his jam. You know what Scotty said? no, Heather, I'm going to watch it anyway. And I was like, Scotty, it's not going to be your jam. And he was like, no, Heather, I'm going to watch it anyway. And then I was like, I give up because he's going to fucking watch it anyway. And then he watched it. And he's like, this really isn't my jam. And I was like, oh my God. But I found it entertaining, but this is very much a slow burn. You really got to like plot development. You really got to be paying attention to the entire film. If for some reason you think you can do multiple things while watching this, you will miss something. Anything you want to add, Scotty, on this one?
Yep, because I originally, because I was about halfway through the movie when I'd messaged you going, yeah, I don't think this is my jam. But then the third act hit, and I'm going, okay, I like this more. It is one that I want to go back and rewatch because I was working while watching it, so I know I missed parts. But you are right; it is a very slow burn, very dialogue heavy. Like it's just more atmospheric than jump scary, and like it's still really well made movie. I can appreciate the hell out of it, but it is very slow, and I do like slow burns, but I need like a little bit more to keep me paying attention.
Yeah.
And at the same time, since I was working, I wasn't able to pay much attention to it as much as I should have. So it's something I want to give a rewatch to because I think this is a well done movie, well acted, and that third act was awesome. So I want to like kind of go back and just kind of piece everything back together.
Well, you heard it there. We both recommend that you watch it if you enjoy the slow burns. It is available on Amazon Video for the United States, DirecTV for the United States, YouTube for the United States, and Fangoria Now for the United States. You should be able to find it on YouTube in Canada as well. It is worth a rental price. $3.99 I think is decent, as long as you like what Scott and I have talked about. If that is not your jam, then you may want to skip this bad boy because it may not be the right fit for you. And the next one is A Nightmare Awakes. It's a Shudder original, I believe. This took me a lot to get through. It's the story of the creator, Mary Shelley, of The Summer. It kind of gives a very creative historical retelling of The Summer in which she wrote the novel Frankenstein.
Okay.
And it focuses a lot on her relationship with a gentleman at the time who had been married to somebody else. She was his mistress, and his wife dies, and she continues to be his lover, but he doesn't want to get married, and there's like the complications with their relationship and other things that are going on that happen, and it's almost like she fuels her energy into writing this Frankenstein novel. Now, I think what this movie is really not acknowledging that during this time, it would have been probably very challenging for women writers to be taken seriously, especially those that were engaged in a adulterous affair with another man. It's fine. I think you really got to enjoy storytelling. You really got to enjoy maybe the creation of the story Frankenstein. Like maybe you're really interested in Mary Shelley and what happened to her, but it's kind of boring. It's not. I think it's horror because of what she's talking about, not necessarily because of what happens to her. Okay. It's what's in her head and the nightmare that is becoming Frankenstein. So if you're looking for something on Shudder, and this sounds like something that you would enjoy, it is available on Shudder, both Canada and the United States. You can rent it on AMC Plus, and it is available on the Shudder Amazon channel. Have you seen this one, Scotty?
No, this is the one that you and Brandon both kind of just said, like it was just really just very slow and not that, like, didn't grip you guys enough. And
it's not really a horror movie. It is. I get why Shudder has it on there because it's telling, it's an over sensationalized Lifetime documentary. That's what it is. And that's fine if that's what you dig. It's well acted. Like there's no real hit I have at it. It's a 91-minute runtime, so it doesn't overstay its welcome, but it does drag. Like it isn't like no walking into it that this is just basically a story about Mary Shelley's life. It's not, something that's going to really creep you out or affect you in any kind of real way, unless, as I said, you're very interested in Mary Shelley as a writer and you want to learn more about her experience with writing this novel.
Okay. And I believe the next one is also you, and I have not seen.
Oh man, now this was a Lifetime movie. So this movie is called Unfollower. It's a 90-minute runtime. It's about a woman who is a fitness model or fitness trainer. She has a YouTube channel as well as a regular full-time job, and she ends up getting a stalker. and they kind of try to do this red herring of who the stalker could be. They jump through a lot of different characters to think of who the stalker might be, and eventually it's someone that you kind of imagined it was from all along. And it's it's very like, woman goes on social media, woman gets stalked, woman can't figure out who it is. Things escalate. Big showdown. Woman wins. The end. And I know I kind of gave away a spoiler there, but it's not that great of a movie. So unless, like, I don't know, if you have a partner that really likes Lifetime films, like, a lot, maybe send this one their way. Maybe they'll enjoy it. It's a little bit of a quote-unquote thriller, I guess you could say. It is available on Prime Video, Tubi, and Amazon. Do not pay to rent this at any point. If you are going to suggest it to someone, they should watch it for free. It is not worth any kind of rental fee. So,
yeah, because I seen the trailer to this one and I was like, pretty much like, yep, this is a Lifetime movie.
It was one of the few that Scott didn't watch, which says something because he watches a lot of shit. So,
hey,
I just call a spade a spade.
None of this on here is actually shit, just to let you know.
Okay. Next one.
All right. So the next one you and I have both seen.
Your girlfriend was in this.
Yes.
With her horrible Irish cut in and out, or whatever it was, not Irish.
It was Kiwi.
Was it Norwegian?
Yeah, Kiwi.
Accent. Oh my God, it was painful. Anyway.
All right. So yeah, the movie we are talking about is Sacrifice, starring Barbara Crampton. The story is Isaac and his pregnant wife visit a remote Norwegian village to claim an unexpected inheritance. The couple finds themselves caught in a nightmare when they encounter a sinister cult that worships a sea-dwelling deity. And yep, this is a Lovecraftian horror film. A lot of like weird, nightmarish visuals going on, like with the pregnant woman when she's sleeping. A lot of like deep voice talking, like that you can't understand. It's like a different language, but it's like, which is kind of like
sounds like Dexter. So Scott is a dog named Dexter, and sometimes when he talks, he's like, oh, it sounds like that. Actually, that's exactly what it sounds like.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate, actually. But yeah, like Heather said, Barbara Crampton, like I love her, but
a lot. Scott loves her. Well, like, a long time.
It's kind of gone. It's kind of simmered down a bit, but I still really like her. Like I watched a lot of stuff that she's in, and most of the movies she's in are really entertaining and good. However, she plays a sheriff in this, and she's supposed to be a New Zealand local, and yet her accent is constantly in and out the entire movie. But other than that, like the Lovecraftian story and everything that's going on in this, I really did enjoy. Wouldn't say it's absolutely amazing, though I do have to say I had messaged Heather about this and said, I have a feeling from here on out, any Lovecraftian horror film that comes out is going to have purple and green lighting just because Color Out of Space did it, and that's now going to be the new thing to call it a Lovecraft film. Because
that's all you need to do. Purple and pink lighting.
Because it was just pointless. Like the lighting was like made no sense because it's like they're in the house, and for some reason the lighting is purple all throughout the house. Like the outside, there's a purple glowing moon, but there isn't. There's no reason for it to be purple besides you just wanted to make it purple. And same with like the green lighting. There was no rhyme or reason to it. But, all that is saying aside, I think this is at least worth a watch. It's quite entertaining, especially if you're a Lovecraftian fan. What did you think, Heather?
I think there's a big thing right now with taking big stars from the 80s and putting them in low budget films and using that as a draw. And I think there's 2 films on this list that did that. I think that it's very much a cult film.
Yes.
It reminded me very much of The Wicker Man. So I'm not going to give it props for individuality. I will say the acting was decent enough for all the characters that were in it. The low budget amount of it, it's not a super high budget movie. So for what it was, I thought it was decent. I thought Barbara Crampton was fine. Like her accent sucked, but otherwise she was fine.
Yeah.
I think for a free watch, it's great. I don't think this is worth a rental. I really don't. It's available on Redbox, Amazon, and Microsoft Store. Sorry. Yeah, I think unless you really enjoy cult-like movies, maybe $1.99 rental, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, for me, I would say it's like for sure worth a rental if you can get it for anywhere between $1.99 and $3.99. Other than that,
I
I
think
would.
I think Scott's on his own on that one.
Yeah.
I don't think it's I think it's very predictable. I think if you
Oh, it's
watch this movie
predictable,
for
but it's still
20 minutes, you
enjoyable.
know what's going to happen. I will admit the ending kind of surprised me at one point, but made a lot of sense too. It was all right. All right. 87-minute runtime. I will say it doesn't overstay its welcome. Um,
Yeah, it's an easy watch.
it's an easy watch. I just don't think it's anything to write home about personally.
Yeah, say like if you're looking for something to be in your top 10, this one
Yeah,
won't be
this
it.
is definitely not going to be something that I would say to you run out and watch. Now, probably the biggest surprise so far this year is our next one.
Yeah. Do you want me to take this one?
Yeah, please do.
All right. So Heather and I ended up doing a movie night like we usually do, and we did Netflix's original Red Dot, which is a story about a hiking trip to rekindle their marriage. A couple find themselves fleeing for their lives in the unforgiving wilderness from an unknown shooter. This is pretty much the couple that goes on vacation. It's all like winter weather, so we're like, oh, this is like a survival horror film. Okay, we're on board with this. Well, the first half of this film, we were both just like, oh fuck, these people are making the dumbest decisions ever. This is
Well, and it was just such a basic paint by fucking numbers survival film. I was just like, oh, like everything was over the top, and the reactions of all the characters were over the top. Everything was over the top, and I was just like, fuck, when's this movie gonna end? Was
yeah, you
anxious.
checked the time like 3 different times in the first
Yes,
half.
up to the 45-minute point.
Yeah,
And
but I
then
was gonna
the
say
twist comes.
because we thought this was gonna be another Outback. With how bad
Oh my god, it was
like
so
how we
bad.
were feeling.
It
But
was
yeah,
like Outback with snow.
yeah. But I will say, like Heather said, once you hit that 45-minute mark,
Mm-hmm.
if you can make it to that point,
Mm-hmm.
stay for the rest of the movie because
Mm-hmm.
this twist happens and it just goes a whole different direction and really shot up my rating compared to what it was because I
Oh
was
yeah,
not going to
huge.
recommend this at all, and now I would recommend it because
Absolutely.
like
And,
I
and
was
it's a free watch on Netflix. Like, I think everyone we know, everyone that we personally know that gives ratings has given it a 3.5 on Letterboxd, and I think that's very fair.
Yeah.
I think for me, I'd probably give it a 3, but it's an entertaining film. The twist in it is worth it. And you may meet people that have different opinions of the outcome. For example, Scott and I had different opinions of the outcome than Brandon Orlick did.
Yeah.
So it's actually a really good talking film too. On whether when it comes to moralities and stuff like that. So it's an entertaining free watch, and for Netflix, which is the only place you can find it, Netflix, everywhere Netflix, it's worth it.
Yep, I'll say just make sure you get through that first 45 minutes and then you'll be pleased by the twist.
Absolutely. It's definitely an easy watch. So next one, you took Wrong Turn out.
Yeah, because we're gonna be talking about it in the main topic.
Yeah, I put it there so I could still mention it.
Oh, okay. Well, we can mention it. I just thought I assumed.
Now we're not going to. We'll save it, Scott.
All right.
The next one is Await the Dawn. This is it doesn't have the runtime here. I believe it's a 90-minute runtime. Not many people have watched this movie yet. It's not even really had an official release because we saw a screener. It has Dee Wallace in it, which, and Bruce Davidson, which some people will probably remember as well too. He's been in a fair amount of stuff. Very, very interesting film. Very low budget, but very good.
Yeah, I was going to avoid this one because I just this looks way too low budget. And then you had said, I think you should check it out. And so I watched it. And yeah, I'm glad I did. This was for a very low budget indie film. This was really well done. Especially I have to give props to the child actress in this.
She was excellent.
She was fantastic, and she legit was creepy. And she even delivered some one-liners that were kind of funny, just with her exasperations with dealing with the people in the RV.
Absolutely. Yeah, she was a talented young lady, and I think that to play the role that she played here would have taken a fair amount of maturity for a child, and I think she did a really good job of it. It is low budget. You're not going to get, the best acting ever, but you get some decent delivery of lines, and it flows. And I definitely think it's worth a rental, like $2.99,
Yeah.
$3.99. I think it's definitely worth a rental.
Yeah, because it's even got some pretty good practical gore effects as well. Like the story was pretty cool. Like I thought I knew where it was going originally, and then it went a completely different route. And I'm like, oh, all right. And so yeah, it was quite entertaining, I would say.
Absolutely. Yeah, so check it out. It should be available on YouTube, Prime, all that kind of stuff coming soon. And if you do have to pay for it, I would recommend paying for it.
Yep, same here. And the next one we will talk about, I looked on Letterboxd and it says it's not available anywhere, but I actually checked and it is. This one is available on Amazon Prime. Not Prime. It is available to rent on Amazon.
On Amazon. Okay.
And that movie is called The Sinners. 7 girls start a cult where each of them must embody one of the 7 deadly sins. They realize there's more to their religious town after they go missing one by one. So this was a very kind of like a teen style horror film that kind of skirted the lines of The Craft. And I would say like that all the actresses in this were really good, and it's kind of that story of them all being really raised in a Catholic school, and of course they're rebelling, so they're doing the 7 deadly sins is what they're being called by.
It's a Canadian movie too. There's a lot of Canadian actors in it.
Yeah, I didn't even know that until you said something. I thought that was awesome.
I recognized a couple of the Canadian actors from. So Prime has showed me specific Canadian horror movies right now on my Prime. So I've been watching Made in Canada by Canadians, for Canadians. Canadians, because Vince brought up a good point of this, and I feel like most Americans aren't aware of this. Vince from TGIF 13 is that in Canadian media, 50% of the content that's put out has to be Canadian. So 50% of the music that's played on the radio needs to be Canadian. 50% of the movies that are distributed needs to be Canadian. We have the Canadian broadcasting standards and stuff like that. So it's actually a pretty high amount that needs to be Canadian content. So, if you seek out Canadian content, doesn't mean that it has to be distributed to a high level. It just needs to be made available.
Which makes me even question Shudder more with some of their Canadian films not coming to Canada.
Well, you know what, though? In all fairness, like Shudder is an American-based providing a service.
True, that's true.
They're not based in Canada, right? So that's the difference, right? So like Fox doesn't have to show shit in Canada that's Canadian. It's if you're a Canadian network that you have to show it, or your company distributing films in Canada. You can't just distribute American films. You would have to distribute Canadian films as well.
Gotcha.
So that's how I recognize the Canadian actors that were in this, because I've been watching more Canadian stuff, and I'm like, oh shit, I've seen that guy in other shit. Oh, okay, this is a Canadian film. When I'm like 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, there's like 8 Canadian actors here. This has to be a Canadian-made movie. There's no way you see that many Canadians when it's an American production. So,
but yeah, what did you think of this in general?
Well, I have 10 minutes left to go in it, but I really did enjoy it. I think it's a really good film. I think it's one of our better films to come out of Canada. It reminds me a lot of The Craft, to be honest, with a different spin to it. And I dig it. I actually have more respect for something like this, who probably could have called themselves a Craft remake.
Yeah.
Like they probably, if we're looking at remakes to what we've seen with, like, for example, the Wrong Turn movie the most recent one has done, this could have done the same thing, called itself The Craft, with just the concept behind having young women engage in deviant behaviors, but they didn't do that. They called it something else.
Yep.
Now, there could be lots of reasons behind that. But I really kind of appreciated that they just went on their own realm to produce this and to do something.
Yeah, and I was saying, like, the story itself was very intriguing with, like, because I can't say it because I don't want to spoil it, but I thought that the main characters were going to be something that they actually ended up not being.
Yeah.
And, like, so I was kind of surprised by that. I figured, I was like, oh, yeah, this could be kind of a painted by numbers, I get it. Like, I'll get it right away type movie. No, it kept me guessing for a little bit, like, what was going on.
Exactly, right? It was pretty me. It was very, very well done. See, that's what happens when you party too hard the night before.
Or when you just host with Scott.
No, that's not from you. That's definitely from last night. But yeah, I would definitely recommend checking this out and renting it.
Yep. Yeah, and I was saying I think it was for rent for $5.99 on Amazon right now, and I think it's worth the rental.
Absolutely.
That's a damn good movie.
Yeah.
And the next couple, I believe you have not seen. Well, actually, yeah, the next four.
Yeah, actually, I have one that I'm going to add on here too.
Okay. Yep. I had a feeling that was gonna be the one. I was gonna bring that up at the end if you didn't. But yeah, I'll start with the first one, and that is Willys Wonderland.
Which kind of sounds like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I feel like that's not what this movie is, though.
No, and I think originally the title was Wally's Wonderland, but for some reason it got changed at some point. But this stars the ever entertaining to watch Nicolas Cage, and
as angry Nick Cage.
Yeah, and this is pretty much almost like a live action Five Nights at Freddy's, if you've heard of that video game.
Ooh.
And so it reminded me of the movie Banana Splits, and then reminded me of Five Nights at Freddy's. But basically, Nick Cage is driving through town in this big ass, this badass hot rod, and someone lays spikes out and he blows the tires on his car. And so he takes it to a shop, and the shopkeeper's like, well, I don't take card. I need cash. So if you don't have cash, I got someone that you can work for that'll give you cash, and we'll get you your car tomorrow. So the job that he's going to be doing is cleaning up Willys Wonderland, basically doing janitorial work because it had been shut down for a while. And while he's there, the animatronics that are inside start coming to life one by one.
Of course.
And then it's pretty much just Nick Cage doing Nick Cage things, kicking a lot of ass, and it's just a fun. It's not going to be on. It's not going to be in my top 10, but I will say this is just one of those sit back, turn your brain off, and just have a blast with this film because it is just a lot of fun. And the crazy thing is, Nick Cage is mute. Well, he's not mute, but he does not say a word in this entire movie.
Ooh.
And it's just his face. It's just his facial expressions and then grunting noises and stuff like that. But it is so freaking hilarious and entertaining. And the animatronics actually reminded me of Showbiz Pizza. I don't know if you had Showbiz Pizza in Canada.
No. I don't even know what that is.
Okay, Showbiz Pizza was a place where kind of like Chuck E. Cheese. Do you know what that is?
Oh, of course I know what Chuck E. Cheese is.
Yeah, it's basically Chuck E. Cheese before Chuck E. Cheese was a thing. We had a thing called Showbiz Pizza, and Chuck E. Cheese took over eventually. And
I think Chuck E. Cheese was before Showbiz. I think Chuck E. Cheese has been around a lot longer.
I mean, it might have, because I would say this was early 80s that Showbiz was around, and Chuck E. Cheese didn't show up till late 80s here for me.
Maybe in Michigan, but
yeah, that's what I was
saying.
The
world's big, Scott.
I know, that's what I'm saying. I'm not sure which one came first, but that's what I remember.
Listeners, why don't you vote in on this very important topic of who came first? What was it, Showbiz?
Yep, Showbiz Pizza.
Showbiz Pizza or Chuck E. Cheese, because really, this is what's important. We want to know.
I'm looking this up now, smartass.
Oh, look at you. You really want to know, don't you?
Yeah. Let's see. Showbiz Pizza. It was founded in 1980.
Like Chuck E. Cheese?
Chuck E. Cheese was founded. Okay, so yep, Chuck E. Cheese by 3 years was.
Oh, high fives, high fives, high fives, high fives.
So Chuck E. Cheese was founded in 1977 in San Jose, California. But this movie is basically you go inside one of those places and then the animatronics are coming to life trying to kill you. But
nice. Sounds funny.
Oh, it's dumb fun. Just it was a blast. I highly, highly, highly recommend it. And this, I believe, is available on Amazon to rent. And I would say it is absolutely worth the rental. Now, the next one that I will be talking about.
They're back.
Yes. Into the Dark is back on Hulu. And they came out because this is basically them wrapping up their season 2. So this is their Valentine's episode for February, and it is called Tentacles. This one had me intrigued because it was a romance horror and a Lovecraftian horror mixed into one. But basically, this couple meets, they fall in love, and they start spending a lot of time together. And then one of them seems to not actually be human. And
done.
I will have to say this is probably one of the more hardcore Into the Darks, if I could call it that. It's actually I would say this would be more of a rated R horror film compared to what the others. Yeah. Yeah, this one was a lot more like scary, a lot more adult themed. They actually showed nudity, which I've never seen in Into the Dark. I'm missing a few that I haven't seen from the first season, so I could be wrong, but I've not seen any nudity in the ones I've seen. Definitely a lot of blood, and some pretty cool special effects and practical effects for the creature. Um, I really got invested. I really got invested with these characters, though I felt they kind of rushed the relationship along too fast in the movie, so I didn't really hook onto the relationship aspect. But I did like the characters. I would definitely say, if you have a way to access this through Hulu or whatnot, I definitely recommend this. I think it's if you're a fan of the Into the Dark films, this is definitely one of the better ones. Like it's up there in like the top 5 of the Into the Dark films I've seen.
That's awesome.
Like it is a lot of fun. And then the next movie, let me get it on Letterboxd here.
I blame Scotty.
Oh, don't blame me. I mean, you can. It's fair. All right. So the next film we're going to talk about is I Blame Society. And it is about a struggling filmmaker that senses her peers are losing faith in her ability to succeed. So she decides to prove herself by finishing her last abandoned film and committing the perfect murder. Now, this is one that I was turned on to by Brandon Orlick because he said he watched the trailer and was really excited to see this one. And so I watched the trailer and I was like, okay, yeah, this looks freaking cool. But it's a mockumentary film. And it's basically, this young filmmaker is just struggling to have like a success in making a movie. So she's like, well, screw it. I'm just going to kind of film like how to do the perfect murder. And it is so well done. And like, you just love the main character. Like, she's just so quirky and goofy, but like so dedicated to this perfect murder, which is kind of scary. But, like it's really well acted. Has a couple other actors I've seen in other films. And yeah, like this is just a very interesting, very entertaining, sometimes funny mockumentary film that I highly recommend anybody see. Like this may be in my top 10 by the end of the year. Like this is that I just enjoyed this that much. It was just very fun to watch. And it is on iTunes, Vudu, Google Play, and I can't tell what that. Oh, Fandango now. But yeah, this is worth watching. I highly recommend anybody check this out, especially if you're a fan of mockumentaries and just like
You hear that, Dave Z?
Yes, Dave Z. I think you would get a kick out of this movie.
Dave Z in the house. Anyway.
Woo, woo.
Woo, woo.
And once again, even though he doesn't listen, Brandon Orlick's the one that turned me on to this. But yet the fucker still has not watched it yet, so I haven't got his opinion.
Yeah, that's okay. We don't care what Brandon thinks anymore.
Right? And well, and I've told you to watch it, but you've been too busy. So
yeah, well, I also had swimmer's ear this week, which was. Let me tell everyone, one of the most fucking painful things I've ever had. Which is saying something because I have a pretty high pain tolerance. Do not get swimmer's ear. My advice.
Yeah, I'll say like you were down and out for a while there.
You've had swimmer's ear, right?
No, I've just had earaches.
Oh man, don't get swimmer's ear. Not good times.
I don't plan on it.
Get from the rain, so maybe you should.
Fear the rain. I see what you did there. Way to segue that in.
I know. I'm just so talented.
So the next movie that I've seen that Heather is not is Fear of Rain, which stars the ever pleasant, from what I hear, Katherine Heigl. And it also stars Harry Connick Jr. and the main character Rain is played by Madison Eisman. A teenage girl living with schizophrenia begins to suspect her neighbor has kidnapped a child. Her parents try desperately to help her live a normal life without exposing their own tragic secrets, and the only person who believes her is Caleb, a boy she isn't even sure exists. And I will have to say, right off the bat, I'm going, this movie is going to probably piss me off because I do not like it when mental illness is taken and not handled correctly and like made to be like, oh, she's crazy because she's got a mental illness. I can't stand that. But I will say this movie came as a fucking surprise because this movie covered schizophrenia in such a realistic way that like I just felt for this poor character, like the stuff that she's going through. And it literally shows like how much stress and everything it is for the parents who are also wanting to help her, wanting to believe what she's seen, like, and just kind of working with her. And it's like, and it just shows like the struggles of day-to-day life with these two people, with the family and her. And one of the things I thought was very clever is, you'll see on the screen, like when she's starting to freak out and maybe see something that might not be there, she starts doing a checklist in her head. Okay, how is everyone else reacting? Okay, and they'll show it on the screen, and you'll see like a check mark as she's like kind of going through it, trying to like process to make sure this is part of
Actually happening.
Yeah, I'm like, that's very well done. Like, I actually had a lot of respect for this. And the story itself, like, besides just covering the topic of schizophrenia, which I thought was amazing and well done, the story itself I thought was also really well done, blending all this together, because it kind of gives you that Fright Night, Rear Window, Disturbia vibe. And
cool.
so it has that kind of story going on as well. But adding in the whole topic with like the mental illness, it's like it adds a whole nother layer to it. And I have to say, all the performances were incredible and heartbreaking at the same time. Even Katherine Heigl did an amazing, fantastic
says
job.
Something because she sucks.
Yeah, like I was really impressed with her at playing the mother. But yeah, this is one of those movies that I just cannot recommend enough. Like, it is just something I thought I was gonna hate, and I came out loving it, and like I am very pleased with what I'd watched.
Nice to know.
Yeah, like I know that this was like a topic that you're like, oh boy, I'm probably not going to want to watch this, but I recommend you check it out, Heather.
Yeah.
Because I know your taste well. Like, I think you will appreciate this one.
Alrighty. I'll watch it, Scotty.
And this is available to watch on Google Play, Vudu, Amazon Prime, Redbox, and Microsoft Store. So it's available everywhere.
And your mama.
And my mama.
And the last one we're going to talk about is a Shudder. I believe it's another Shudder original that dropped this week called Shook. It is a 88-minute runtime. It is basically another social media movie. It's about a social media star who becomes stalked, but it's not what it seems. What I enjoyed about this movie is there's some subtle messages that are said in some dialogues with two main characters that I think that unless you really listen and like really get into the metaphors of what they're saying, it could easily be skipped over. Because I live my life in metaphors, I was able to catch on to some of it, which means that if you miss over it, then it wasn't done well. Then that means the movie didn't do a good job of communicating it. So it's entertaining though. If you enjoy this whole social media being stalked thing, you'll dig it. If you enjoy the ridiculousness of YouTube and YouTube stars and all that kind of shit, you'll dig it. I like that stuff. I think this was probably filmed for a pretty low budget. It didn't use a lot of sets or anything like that, and it was unique. The actors that are in it do a decent job. It flows quickly, and for a free watch on Shudder, you really can't go wrong. Do I think this is top 10 material for people? Probably not. But would I say it was entertaining and up there as one of the better social media movies that I've seen? Yeah, probably. Not as good as Spree. Or Follow Me, the one about the escape room last year. That was really, really good. But I would say it's like the tier below that. It's definitely entertaining and it's something that's relevant. Social media is very relevant right now, and this might really work for a younger horror fan who is just getting into horror. So you can find it on the Shudder. On the Shudder.
Nice. Yeah, this is what I was waiting to get your opinion on, because
it's fine, honestly, Scott. It's an easy watch.
Okay, so yeah, I'll definitely have to give it a watch then.
Yeah, it's definitely worth it. So we're gonna go into our older films. I'm first because first is the best.
Oh, no, the second is best.
Third's the one with the hairy chest, which is also you.
Yes,
it's true. It looks like a rug. So anyway. Such a dick. So older films. I watched Body Bags, 1993, with Mr. John Carpenter. Man, what a good anthology.
Yeah, this was a fun anthology.
I feel like with this anthology, kind of like Cat's Eyes, it stuck to really 3 stories, because I believe it's just 3 stories, but they were all really good.
Yeah, like the middle one is ridiculous, but it was still fun as hell.
Oh my god, it was great.
Yeah.
With the hair transplant?
Yeah.
My god. With Stacy.
Yeah, Stacy Keach.
Oh my god, he was so fucking funny.
Yes, I loved it.
And he took it real seriously, and it was great. I thought this movie was fucking jokes. It's on Shudder. If you like anthologies, which I found that anthologies are something I definitely dig, and you haven't seen Body Bags for whatever reason, Even the wraparound's great. The wraparound's like it's almost like a film that you could introduce to, I would say, early adolescence.
Yeah.
It's scary, but it's not too scary. It's just a fun movie.
Yeah, it's very
really fun movie.
And John Carpenter and his wraparound is very tongue in cheek. Reminds me of he was doing his best version of the Crypt Keeper, basically. And I loved
he was great. He was really funny. It was definitely worth watching. I finally, to our next one here, finally watched an Italian horror film that I liked.
Yay!
Called Deep Red, 1973. Dario Argento.
Yeah, Argento. Yep.
Argento. And I forgot, I do like Suspiria. I've
Yes.
seen the original Suspiria, and I like that too. So I got to give a shout out to that. But that was not a first time watch this year. I did see that film for the first time last year. I really dug this movie, Deep Red. It's a great kind of giallo slasher, I guess what it's supposed to be.
Yes.
I really didn't know who the murderer was. I was kind of surprised at the end. It's 127 minutes. It feels like 127 minutes, but not in a bad way. Like in a way that it makes sense with the plot and how it's been developed. So, finally found a 1973 movie that I liked.
Yay!
Finally found an Italian movie that I liked. So,
Yay.
We're going to continue to go down this good fight. And finally, I watched All Hallows Eve 2.
That was fun.
Yeah, I had avoided this because people kind of were like, well, Art the Clown's on it and not that good. I thought it was actually great. A lot of short stories, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this one had a lot. A lot.
Scott drinks his overly massive iced tea that he got that looks like it could feed a family of 8. All right, everybody, take your sip of the iced tea and pass it around.
All I gotta say is this massive size right here probably has enough caffeine in it to what 1 cup of your Starbucks would. So,
well, do you want to make states like this? You already got wrong about Chuck E. Cheese today. Do you want us to now look up the caffeine in your big gulp to my fucking coffee?
Well, you could talk about All Hallows Eve too, and I will look that up.
I could be wrong about something else today.
Fuck off.
But yeah, so I felt like there was a lot of short stories in here. So there was a lot of directors, yet again, like this is almost a little bit like ABCs of hidden horror. You got a lot of samples and none of them really connect to each other. And the wraparound doesn't really connect to anything in the stories. It's more just, a character that's delivering this videotape, and the chick isn't nearly as likable in the wraparound as the kids were with the babysitter in the first one. But I like anthologies. So because I like anthologies, I was definitely able to handle this one and enjoy it for what it was. Now, Scott, can you stop Googling whatever if you can't find the answer, then you can't find the answer.
I just won.
Why?
I won. Okay, so tea has 25 milligrams of caffeine.
Okay, but how much milligrams is in that?
I don't know, but coffee has...
So you haven't measured the amount in the big gulp.
But coffee has 95 milligrams. I win.
No, because if my coffee was smaller than that big gulp...
It would still be, I still win.
I feel like, you're just trying to justify your big gulp for a family of 8 that you purchased today.
Damn right. I validate this for myself, and I consider myself a winner.
A winner.
Winner, chicken dinner.
All right. Well, winner, why don't you talk about these winner films?
All right. So the first movie, kind of like Heather doing her trip down the 70s Gialli, I am doing the trip through the Hammer horror films, and I was talking to Brandon Orlick because I was like, look, I am just not feeling these Hammer horror films. I respect them, but I have not found one that I really enjoy. So he gave me a few suggestions. So I checked out his first suggestion, which was Twins of Evil from 1971. And this one is, while dabbling in Satanism, Count Karstein resurrects Marcella Karnstein, who initiates him into vampirism. As a rash of deaths afflict the village, Gustav, the head of Puritan group, leads his men to seek out and destroy the pestilence. One of his twin nieces has become inflicted with the witchcraft, but Gustav's zeal and venom has trapped the innocent Maria, threatening her with a torturous execution, while her sister is running free as a vampire. This is another one of those films. Like I will say I've liked this film better than the other Hammer horror that I have watched. but not by much. It's still just kind of, it's there. It's entertaining enough. It does have Peter Cushing in it. So
You
yep,
need
he
to think
is.
of like Cushy.
Yeah, cushy.
Cushy. Like when you sit down on the couch, you want it to be cushy.
Cushy for my tushy.
Right? Right?
But yeah, he's in this again, and this time he's not playing like the vampire hunter. He's just like literally kind of like a witch finder general, just hunting down witches and burning them at the stake, or falsely accusing women of being witches and killing them that way. So that whole concept and idea I talked about in the last episode. I do love that dark part of history. But yeah, this one was better, but still just okay to me. I'm gonna continue. I got some suggestions from Xander Kane, or that I'm gonna check out at some point, and hopefully between him and Brandon Orlick, I'll find something that I really dig in this universe of Hammer horror.
Awesome.
But the other one I decided to check out was from the 100 Hidden Gems from the Horror Cast, and it is another 70s flicks. And this one is The Little Girl Who Lives Down the Lane from 1976. And this stars a very, very, very young Jodie Foster and also Martin Sheen. And Jodie Foster is this young little girl that is living by herself. But she is basically telling everybody that her father is there at all times, but you don't really know why she's saying that. And Martin Sheen plays this really creepy pedophile type character, and it's just really gross. But I have to say, this movie grew on me, because at first I was like, oh, this is not too bad of a film. But then as the days went by afterwards, it just stuck with me. So it just kept going up for me more and more. I really did enjoy this. Jodie Foster's performance is so freaking incredible. She's like a little adult in this movie. It's amazing how well like her performance was. And yeah, I really recommend this movie. It's very interesting. It's pretty predictable like with the storyline itself, but just like the acting and delivery of lines really just keeps you going for the movie. But yeah, I would say this is definitely a high recommend for me. I was very happy with it. And
Awesome.
the next one is a newer film from 2015 called Bloodsucking Bastards. I have heard fun things about this film. I just never got around to it, but it's basically this accounting department all of a sudden gets a new boss that takes over the company, and the new boss is a vampire who is slowly, quote unquote, promoting the team of accountants onto his vampire side. And it stars Pedro Pascal, who everyone now knows from The Mandalorian and Game of Thrones. And also stars, I forget his name, but he was also in Cabin in the Woods and You're Not the Killer. Too lazy to look it up at the moment. But
Scott's not prepared because he's too busy arguing about caffeine from iced tea to coffee.
That's right.
From his family-sized Big Gulp.
I want to win an argument with you. And
so when you go to Big Gulp, are they like, is this just for you?
I go to a gas station Speedway, and they have the Big Gulp, and they're not surprised because this is America, Heather.
That's true.
Americans are buying this size of pop.
It's like when I went to your gas station Speedway there, and there was like a pre-pan cutout of Rice Krispie Squares, like a full pan.
Yeah,
packaged.
and then you could also like buy slices of pizza and all sorts.
Yeah, we have that too. We just don't. I just like making fun of you because we also have Big Gulps in Canada.
Yeah, so there. I don't like you anymore. Okay. And during this argument of you mocking me, I looked up his name. His name is Fran Kranz. That's the actor from Cabin in the Woods and You're Not the Killer. But yeah, this was a really entertaining, funny, just vampire movie. It's so over the top gory, and all the characters are just entertaining as hell. Pedro Pascal is just a smooth motherfucker throughout the whole thing, which doesn't surprise me because he is just suave in general. Yeah, I definitely recommend this movie. I think it's a lot of fun.
Awesome. I'm so glad you dug that one. I love how I make fun of you and interrupt you, and I try to throw you off all the time. It's a lot of fun.
I'll say you do try your best, but I always seem to keep on track.
I know. You're just a survivor. You're just like Destiny's Child, you know?
I'm a survivor.
You're a survivor. You're just gonna keep on surviving. What we are listening to. So what's on your podcast schedule right now, Scotty Too Hottie?
Well, I decided to check out a very new show that has joined us on the Legion Podcast Network, and it is called the Dread Familiar Podcast. And this is basically trying to think how you would put this. It's kind of like an anthology of short stories. Each episode focuses on a different short story narrated by someone else. The person that puts this together, I believe his name is Joel Eckert. And but yeah, I really think this is a very well done, easy to listen to podcast. Like, they have 4 episodes out on the Legion Network right now that you can check out. Super easy because they're like 20 to 30 minutes long each episode, and each episode's a different story and a different narrator. And he is also currently looking for submissions. So if you are a horror writer, I guess reach out to maybe Bo Ransdell and offer,
You mean
if you have any
BB?
stories.
Boss
Yeah,
Bo?
big boss man. Big
It's
boss
like,
Bo.
like the wrestler, the big boss man, and Bo
Yeah.
like runs out to the stage with like a nightclub and shit.
I can picture it. I can totally see him being big boss man.
That's really funny.
But yeah, I recommend this because it was very well done. I loved one of the stories, of course, spoke to me because it was a Lovecraftian horror.
Oh my god, Corey.
But yeah, this is definitely a great story. And yeah, if you are a horror writer and you have some submissions, either send them our way, send them Bo's way. We'll find a way to get them to Joel
Send them
Eckert.
Scott's way.
Yeah.
Scott's in the know. He's really involved.
I'm totally involved.
With whoever will take him, just so we're clear.
I'm not picky at this moment.
He's not picky. He'll take what he can get. So the podcast I'm going to talk about is Pick 6 Movies, which is also on the Legion Podcast Network and is done with Bo Ramsdell and Chad. Chad. Because that's how Chad sounds, everyone. Chad. And they pick, I don't know why they say 6, because they only cover 1 movie per podcast. I'm going to make fun of Bo about that.
I think the reason is they have a theme and they pick 6 movies from that theme and cover them each episode.
Look how smart you are, huh?
Yeah, because I think they did 6 Christmas episodes because that's when I first started listening to them.
So they have done a variety of they do reviews, right? But what they do first is they cover the actual story. So for example, they covered Flowers in the Attic and Petals on the Wind. Have you heard of either one of these, Scott?
Yep, I watched Flowers in the Attic when I was a little kid, and it mortified the shit out of me because of one scene in the movie.
Were you not like, oh man, I can't go bang my sibling now?
No, I wasn't, but no, it wasn't even that mortified me. It was
because you watch enough Pornhub that you know that that's fine. Sorry,
right, exactly.
My dog has wrapped himself around my fucking headphones. Okay, here we go. On Pornhub, that's why they throw in step though.
That's true, because that gets, incest is a little too far.
They keep it safe, but we all know what they're actually getting to.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a fantasy of mine. Wait, what? Did I say that out loud?
You're like, what? What happened? What? No? Tim Davis? What?
Oh, Tim Davis. Now we're talking. And
That's
I'm
your
hard.
fantasy. That's your fantasy.
And I'm wet.
But yeah, so anyway, they cover this film. So they give the whole history around the development of the novel, the author, and then they do a review of it. And it's pretty funny.
Yes.
For example, in this review, they talked about how Catherine, the main character, goes to the second best ballet school in New York City, and needs to audition and shit to get involved in it. Like it's really dry sense of humor, but it's great. Like they're fucking jokes and they're awesome. So if you haven't listened to them by now, what are you waiting for? They're up to season 14, like some weirdos. Season 15. Who makes that many seasons? Weirdos do.
Bo, the man who doesn't stop.
Oh, look, my name's Bo. I run a network and I have so many podcasts. Anyway,
But it's a great
podcast. Check it out.
It is a lot of fun, and I do have to say, I'm still salty at Bo for destroying Christmas Vacation for me because it's one of my all-time favorite Christmas movies, and he just tore it apart. Him and Chad both did. Like they said, this movie's fun, but they just still destroyed it.
and the sound production behind that show is just out of this world. So even if you're listening to How to Podcast Well, I honestly, as much as we're making fun of Bo and Chad, it's because they're really fucking good. Like you want to listen to a high quality, well-researched, well-produced show, you listen to Pick Six Movies and you're going to be quite impressed. So
Yes.
please check them out. They have lots of different themes. You know, they got 15 seasons under their belt, for goodness sakes, because they're ballers. So, yeah, and all the best to Friday the 13th, who has been picked up by the Dread Central.
Yep, Dread Central has picked up Friday the 13th, so they are leaving our network to go to them, which it's amazing news.
Yeah, all the best, guys. I've enjoyed listening to you. We'll continue to listen and support you. Wish you all the best with that. So we are going to take a short break. We are going to hear from our many, many, many Legion, or one of our many, many Legion podcast family members. And after these messages, we'll be right back. Cha-cha.
This is a test of the emergency podcasting system. Listen to the Psychosemantic Podcast. Politics, movies, and political movies. Find us on Facebook, iTunes, Stitcher, LegionPodcasts.com. The Psychosemantic Podcast.
And welcome back. Our main topic for this week will be comparing remakes from remakes to the originals. We're doing franchises this week. Next week we'll be doing, I should say next podcast, we'll be doing one-time movies. So movies that were made once and then there was a corresponding sequel. So, but why remakes? And why does everyone get so mad about them more than anything else? So Scott and I plan on making as many people angry as possible with this topic.
Yep.
So we're hoping that, you know, you're one of those people that tell me that things are untouchable, because everything is touchable with consent.
Especially me.
With consent. We're all about consent here on.
Well, anyone
Friday
can touch me without consent.
So you're consenting to the non-consent of the touching. So it's like a fantasy.
Yes.
Right? So just like some people probably have fantasies that these movies weren't remade, but they were. So we're going to...
But they were.
But we're going to talk about our first article. So why we remake, the politics, the economics, the emotions of film and remakes. And this came out of the University of Melbourne. And so we've included a link. And this is a little bit about an article about why there's remakes. So when it comes to preferred versions of films, Pride and Prejudice is perhaps the most, I guess would probably, even though it's not a horror movie, it's probably one of the most popular ones that has been remade. So most people are familiar with the Jane Austen story. That has been remade several times. What's your version? Which one did you like? Did you like the one with Keira Knightley? Who was your favorite heartthrob, Mr. Darcy? And perhaps it's its energetic classic serial, which can be most famous, the wet shirt scene in TV history, featuring Colin Firth and Jennifer L., or the black and white 1940 version starring Greta Garson as Lizzie, with historical inaccurate costuming and giddy banter. So obviously we have some criticisms of even the Pride and Prejudice movies before we even get into the horror film. So
right.
In the world of cultural studies, film remakes are a fascinating territory for analysis. What makes a producer or a director want to recreate something that's already been done or been done before several times? Is it the desire to invest in a safe financial bet, or a genuine drive to make something good even better? In this lecture, so when you follow this link, there's actually a lecture with Dr. Rosen Warner, who explores the ideas as creativity, newness, and the nature of storytelling, and that remakes are under a unique kind of pressure that rarely gets directed at other screen content. Such productions are expected to make a convincing case to the audience that they're worth seeing, even though their content is not new. Valuable point. I feel this way about the Romeo and Juliet play. So I saw that play when I was in grade 9. Now, spoiler, they die. So, you know, for some reason, if you're not familiar, that concept has been redone so many times. And like, what a downer movie.
Yeah.
Like, you know what's going to happen. And like, the whole time you're like, no, don't take the poison. No, just wait a couple seconds, right? Like, and nothing ever changes. So why do we want to see things that have already been done before? So an argument about why there's a problem with remakes is that Hollywood is what's creative today and has somehow recently run out of ideas, quote unquote.
Yeah.
This is the idea that the glory days of Hollywood, when imaginable work flowed throughout the streets of Hollywood, and there was, no lack of ideas. But this isn't actually the case. What we actually see when we see remakes is someone is actually taking that extra creative step to take something that was made at a specific time frame and then try to remake it so it actually makes sense for people of today. So Videodrome, for example, you have to know what VCRs are to get that film.
Yeah, that is a very good one to bring up.
And the effect that they had back then. Now, that's not to say that movie needs to be remade nowadays and have some kind of media use of it. But there is something that's nostalgic about it. Even with Rent-A-Pal that came out last year, even though it was both Scott and I's number one, maybe someone who watched that movie who never used VHS would be like, what the fuck is this shit? Like, what the hell is going on here? Because it does very much focus on the video aspect of it, and of course, loneliness and other things as well. So when we see these remakes, what we're trying to get out of this is a kind of a readapt to common times, which honestly I found in the Wrong Turn remake, which we will get to.
Yep.
I felt like the Wrong Turn remake really tried to be like, hey, it's 2021, guys. We all know it's fucking 2021. Mm-hmm. We're not going to pretend it's 2003. We're going to all acknowledge that it's 2021, and this is the way films are made. So even if we look at, and I know I'm dancing up to very close to this, but if we look at all these remakes, they're the closest ones in years of remakes is the Wrong Turn in 2003 to the remake in 2021. It has the least amount of time, has 18 years. How much has filming and culture changed in those 18 years?
Yeah, quite a bit.
Right? So I think when we see these remakes and people get on their high horses, I can't believe this is happening. Just because that represented something from your culture and your identity doesn't mean it's going to do the same thing nowadays for everyone. Hence,
exactly.
Remakes. So another article, which is at Mashable.com, why is Hollywood producing so many damn remakes? Remake is Hollywood's executives' favorite word. Almost as long as movies have been made, there's been directors and producers and writers clamoring to reboot the hell out of everything that's ever hit a theaters. Why? Because sometimes it really works. Without the original 1932 Scarface, audience wouldn't have the later 1983 masterpiece starring Al Pacino. What about The Thing? The Thing from Outer Space, guys, because everyone I'm sure on here is listening to the 1951 version or seen the 1951 version.
I'll say some of our listeners I know have for sure, but not everybody.
Craig,
yeah,
Phil, I would like to acknowledge that they have.
Yeah.
But I would say that most common people have not seen those, just simply due to the time that they were released. So where are we? The same goes for Ocean's 11, The Maltese Falcon, Some Like It Hot, and other Hollywood gems. Dig deeper into movie history and you'll find many successful films are just polished off versions of the past. Lastly, it seems that there seems to be a growing trend of remaking bigger budget movies that were just in theaters. Remember the whiplash you felt when Spider-Man got the reboot treatment with Andrew Garfield just after 5 years after Tobey Maguire's starred turn? The same goes for two different Hulk movie audiences that had to sit through in 2003 and in 2008. According to the data blog, The Drone You're Looking For, 120 remakes have been theatrical released between 2003 and 2012. The average critic score of these films on Rotten Tomatoes, a middling 46%, where the original films had a medium score of 78%. Critical prestige is low, but the box office is overflowing. The total box office gross of these remakes started at $12 billion.
That's insane.
Right? If you do it well, you'll have access to a gold mine, and I'm pretty sure studio bosses like gold mines. Yet again, and this is the same way I feel about when people say bands sold out. And I'm probably going to get some people to disagree with this statement, and I don't care. You do not go into music and get to the level where you're selling albums and, CDs back when you and I were young and making it to Billboard top 20s because you don't want to make money.
Yeah, exactly.
We watched Clapboard Jungle and none of those indie directors are like, I'm just doing this for the passion. I don't care at all about making a paycheck. I don't care if I have to work 5 part-time jobs to feed my family. I just want to make passionate films. No, they want to make money.
They want a career.
as capitalist society, guys. So, I think that when we, jump on people for doing remakes and stuff like that, like, yeah, they're low hanging fruit. And you know what? Sometimes you need that. Or sometimes you need something to get people interested in the horror movie genre. Or you just need something that that's going to be an economic hit so you can fund that side project that you're working on and that you really want people to see.
Yep.
So, studios make back-to-back remakes for a laundry list of reasons. Chiefly among them is security and bankability. Movies that were past hits are usually financial wins for the future. There's also a guaranteed built-in audience and a better chance for publicity when it comes to future films. Now more than ever, studios are becoming dependent on past franchises. The previous material doesn't even have to be great in order to get a reboot green light, because the majority of stills will come from an international market. Global audiences are still hungry for reboots, and it shows in the box office figures, even if American audience get weary of all the Transformer films.
It's so true.
There's also an issue of licensing. Reboots of super recent films usually come around for blockbusters, particularly superhero flicks, for a slightly panicked reason. In the case of Spider-Man and other Marvel characters, the license with other studios will lose them if they don't actively make movies. So Sony needs to keep making Spider-Man films, or else the rights go back to Marvel. And whoever takes the character and makes the film who takes the character and makes a film with his parent studio company, Disney. Whether you like it or not, remakes are a great part of Hollywood culture. And then it goes on to talk about 5 recent movies that have been subject to remake treatment. So we stopped it there because really we have our own remakes that we need to talk about that Scott and I put many hours into watching. So we are definitely going to talk about these remakes. But I think it's really important to understand that when a film is remade, it's not a personal vendetta or attack against you. Or your personal beliefs, and you have the ability to not go to the movie theater and watch it if you don't want to. You don't even have to watch it on Shudder or VOD if you don't feel like it, Scott.
Exactly. The whole, like they said in the articles, pretty much remakes are a way to get people's asses in the seats and make some money,
or keep the rights.
Or keep the rights. Yep, because that's why we had so many different crazy reboots to Hellraiser, because Dimension Films needed to keep the rights, so they had to make a new Hellraiser film every couple of years. And that's just the way it goes. But yeah, I guess we can kind of just jump right into the ones that we're going to be covering, shall we?
Absolutely. Why don't you start off with, I think, a great example of how you can make a movie 30 years later almost, and it be a very quality film.
Yep, absolutely agree. So the first movie we're going to talk about here is the original classic, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which was released on October 1st, 1974. Sally, Franklin, and their 3 friends run out of gas while driving to their grandfather's house. One by one, they are tormented and killed by a chainsaw-wielding killer and his psychopathic family.
So let's read the remake.
I was saying, yep, and then the remake is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which was released October 17th, 2003. A few friends are horrified when a hitchhiker shoots herself in their car. Looking for help in a town, they find themselves being targeted by a family of cannibals and a chainsaw-wielding lunatic. So I guess the way we should go about this is kind of how we did with the Asian ghost story versus Western remake, and we should talk about just how, what did these two do differently? And because sometimes remakes can be just shot for shot remakes.
Yeah. Like Asian ghost stories are.
Yeah,
definitely. I find that these are not. There was nothing that was shot for shot remake.
Nope, there is nods to things that may happen in the other films, but yeah, especially in these 2 films, they kept the whole conceptual design of the story, but added Robert, or was it Arlie Ermey as the sheriff in the remake, which you didn't even have a crooked, crazy sheriff in the original.
Well, that was part of the family, right? And
yes.
Kind of took over for the other character in the original. There was a man that
the hitchhiker.
Well, no, not the hitchhiker. There's a man that Sally finds in her journey that she thinks is safe, and it turns out that he's connected with the family.
Oh, yes.
And I felt like the sheriff was just kind of reprising that role in the remake. But this remake comes 29 years later and is still based in the same time frame. So we haven't moved up. The remake has kept it around the same time frame. I would say the acting from these 2 films are good for their time.
Yeah.
I bought into the characters in the original Chainsaw Massacre. I got that they were friends. That hitchhiker that they picked up seemed super creepy
Yeah.
and did some super creepy shit. And when they kicked him out, it seemed pretty legit. Now they go to Franklin and Sally's grandfather's house, which is where they're staying and hanging out. And they kind of just wander into they go to look for a generator. So the three friends that are with them go out to look for like electricity. I guess there's no electricity in Sally's grandfather's house.
No, they were looking for gas for their vehicle.
Was it gas they were looking for? Okay.
Yeah, because the
and then
gas
they
station
saw a
was
janitor. And then the guy was like, "Oh, I'm going to take." You're right, because he was like, "I'm going to take the gas and then leave my guitar."
Yeah,
as
which
payment and some money.
I was going to say, like, right here is one of the issues I have with the original is a lot of what would happen in this film wouldn't have happened if they just never went to the other house and, for one, just let themselves in the house, even though no one answered the damn door.
They're like, "Hey, I'm here, bitches."
Yeah, we're breaking into your house. Hey, anyone here? Oh, there's a chainsaw wielding lunatic wearing someone's face. Yep. Okay. Yeah, Leatherface would not have known that these group of people were even around if they did not do that. This was like a stupid decision on their part and kind of their fault in a way. And like the only one that I felt bad for was Sally and Franklin, because they really didn't they didn't even really go over there until they were pretty much forced to look for them.
Absolutely, right? When they don't come back and Franklin kind of knew shit was going down from the beginning.
Yeah,
right.
Like he was not wanting to be around much.
And I felt like Franklin's character was also redone in this movie, the 2003 movie, only he wasn't in a wheelchair. And I thought it was interesting that Franklin was in a wheelchair. Now, I don't know if that actor was wheelchair bound.
Yeah, I'm not too sure
I'll have to
if he was.
Maybe look that up, because I think that's an interesting thing while I look up Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003, because the character that I felt that replaced Franklin was Morgan, who was played by Jonathan Tucker. And I really felt like he, from the beginning, when I know we're jumping back and forth between the two movies here. So in the 2003 remake, when they're driving through, they're coming back from Mexico, they're all had a good time. They pick up this young woman on the side of the road. She shoots herself in their van. He automatically says, "Let's just drop the body and go."
Yeah.
Kind of like Franklin is like, after they get rid of that hitchhiker, do you guys think something's wrong with him? Do you think we have something to be concerned of? And they're making fun of Franklin, like, "Oh yeah, Franklin, he's coming for you. I know he's going to come and get you." And Franklin's like, "No, seriously, like, I'm concerned. Like, that guy seemed fucking crazy." And I feel like Franklin and Morgan together, similar roles, but I feel like different characters, but similar roles and very similar impact in the film. And I think they were both kind of the predictor of what was to come. And I really appreciate that. And watching the two movies back to back, I don't know if I would have picked that up otherwise.
Yes.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, because they were almost kind of like the Franklin and Morgan characters were almost kind of like the Harbinger character that's always in like the slasher movies, where it's like, the word of warning of what's going on, like, hey, or the words of wisdom, like, let's not be around here, let's get out of here.
Yeah.
And I will say, I did look up, and yet didn't look like that actor was actually wheelchair bound, like in real life.
Yeah, so then they just threw that in there, I guess, maybe for a kill, an easy kill, and a sympathetic kill, or even more brutality, that this person who is unable to really defend themselves.
Yeah, because apparently the guy that played Franklin actually originally auditioned to play the hitchhiker.
Really?
Yeah, and Toby Hooper liked him better as Franklin.
Awesome. Yeah, he was a good little actor.
Yeah, and I'm going to say it right now. Everyone that's always, "Fuck Franklin, he's the most annoying character," I got to do it right now because I'm tired of that argument everywhere. He is not annoying. He is upset, freaked out, which if any of us would have been in his situation, would have done the exact same thing. And the poor guy was treated like shit. Like, we're seeing him in a wheelchair. They get him over, we get him to the house, and they're like, "Hey, Franklin, watch the van while we go inside and explore." So they're leaving him out by him. Yeah, and bang. And they leave him out by himself, for one. And then it's on uneven ground, so he has a hard time moving around with his wheelchair by himself. And then he gets curious because no one's answering, and he spooks himself up by seeing that blood smear that he just rolls himself up that ramp all by himself, which it shows him struggling to do. Like,
yeah, this really represented individuals with disabilities and the challenges that they have to deal with.
Yeah,
like,
and like
for
I don't see why.
1974, it was pretty like it kind of talked about isolation, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think you make some good points, Scott.
Yeah, like I don't understand why people always say he's annoying. Maybe it's because of the whole thing he does when he's inside the house, but that's just him frustrated.
I thought it was funny. I thought he was a great actor. I believed in him. I felt bad for him. I felt bad for everyone that was killed. I can honestly say that in this one and in the remake, I felt empathy for the kills. I didn't feel nothing when they were killed. I actually cared about what happened to them.
Right. Because, even in the remake, all the characters are likable. They're a little more, I would say they're almost like a little more like punk rock versions of the original characters. But at the same time, they're still likable characters that didn't deserve what happened to them. And their whole situation of how they end up getting involved with the family actually is a lot more realistic, where you do say, well, these ones definitely didn't deserve it because they didn't go anywhere and just start walking in someone's house.
They tried to report a murder or a suicide.
Yeah, they had to report a suicide, and and that, of course, unfortunately, the sheriff is the corrupt family member that's fucking scary.
So what about Marilyn Burns? So we have two protagonists here who survive. So both Aaron from the remakes, played by Jessica Biel, and both Sally, played by Marilyn Burns, survives. Different ways that they survive. I feel that the dinner that Sally is forced to attend is very intense and creepy and uncomfortable. And I feel like that is the only scene for me that warrants the warning that you get at the beginning of the film. I think that dinner scene is very fucked up.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say that is it's almost watching a character that was normally mentally stable just fucking snap.
Oh, she falls apart. Her acting is quite good. How she acts like a crazy person.
And that the crazy part is a lot of that acting is actually her really
having a breakdown.
Yeah, because apparently it was just Toby Hooper just kept saying, "Oh, not good enough. We need to reshoot. Oh, we need to reshoot." And just the exhaustion and everything, it just made her kind of snap.
Oh man, that's a shame that I wasn't aware of that. Thank you, Scott, for bringing the facts.
You're welcome.
Now we hate Toby Hooper. But I really do appreciate how she kind of jumps through the glass at the end and runs to the street in the famous scene with the truck.
What was it? Big Maria or something like that.
Right, and that the truck driver gets chased by Leatherface as well.
I love that truck driver's reaction. He's just like, "Fuck this," and he's just gone.
Oh yeah, it was pretty fucking. It looked like you were watching a news feed happening. That is what I will give credit about this '70s film. It looked like you were watching like a Cam Hell news event.
Yes, because I was gonna say the whole thing about this film is it looks and feels like this is real, and you should not be watching it.
So with the remake, then, I personally found Jessica Biel's character extremely empowering. I am not a huge Jessica Biel fan, but when I think of Jessica Biel as a performer, I think of this as her highlight, to be quite frank. I think that she's at the dinner. They do have that kind of, not dinner scene. She brings them to the house, and she sees the mom, and, the mom goes into this rant about how they're just like every other kid that made fun of her son and blah, 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 blah. And she needs to pay, blah, 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 blah. And they throw her into the basement, and you see Leatherface. And I think in both films, Leatherface has a menacing appearance, but I honestly find him creepier in the 1970s one because of the mask he's wearing.
Yes, the mask.
It looks more real. Like I could see someone on the street like that.
Yeah, because that just kind of goes back to that whole realistic, I shouldn't be watching this quality of that 74 film, because it's so low budget, that something about that skin mask actually looks like someone's real flesh that he's wearing, where in the newer one it doesn't really look like someone's skin that he's wearing. It looks more like a prop, like a mask.
It does. It definitely looks like a Hollywood prop mask, but he's bigger. He does seem more menacing and evil. I feel like in the first one, he just seemed like he was mentally disturbed and was doing things because he didn't know any better.
Yep, doing
Like, I
things.
felt like if you
well,
had like a strong enough stance to stand up against him, he would have like got scared and run away. I didn't feel that way in the remake.
Yeah, because like you can even see him pretty much being a like abused and threatened verbally by like
Yeah.
father figure in the original, and like
Yeah.
the hitchhiker, when they're all like, they just talk down to him like he's dumb.
They talk
And
to him like he's a dog. They
Yeah.
treat him like he's a dog.
Yep.
And I feel like in the remake he's treated like he's stupid as well, but he's definitely more menacing. And he looks angry. Like in the first one, it's like, you're right. He was almost like he was seen as an individual that had no real control and was being monopolized by others. In the remake, he has full control and it's just pissed. Like, just straight out pissed. And one of the tearjerker scenes that still gets to me is when Erin goes down and she sees her friend hanging up on the makeshift cross.
Yeah.
And he's begging for her to kill him. And she doesn't. And it's a really sad scene.
Yeah, because you're having to kill one of your friends who is just suffering with a massive meat hook in his back, who's just and lost a leg, and he's just sitting there bleeding out and just like in complete pain. Like, because you can watch him like before that trying his best to like use his upper strength to pull himself off the hook, and he almost does it a couple times, but he just can't get it there.
And then he goes deeper because he's collapsing down, and
it's just rough. Like,
it's a rough watch. Like, I will definitely acknowledge that scene and the emotional darkness that's in that scene, or where she's crawling through the water trying to get away from Leatherface, and that little boy helps her, and she gets her friend Morgan, and her and Morgan get away, and they get to the shack thing, and Morgan sacrifices himself for Erin. Like, the last 40 minutes of this movie is basically her fighting for her life.
Yeah, and that's kind of like the same with the original too. It's like almost like the last half of the film is Sally fighting for her life. Like, I like how they both kind of did that.
I felt like in the first one it was more realistic to probably what would happen. Like, Jessica Biel was kick ass, right? Like, she just
you were just like, yeah, do it, girl.
Right? She like steals the baby and like fucking pieces out and
cuts off Leatherface's arm.
Right, and she flakes out on that truck driver who brings her back to the diner, and you're kind of seeing the repeat of what happened with the hit, like the whole truck driver in the first one, like in the original. And to kind of finish it off, we have a lot of movies to talk about. So I remember the campaign leading up to this and the commercial for this. I remember it just started off with just showing the house, and it was like, coming 2003, and then you just heard like a chainsaw sound.
Yep.
And that was smart. They didn't give too much away. And I feel like, yet again, this movie got a lot of hate when it came out. Even though it's a good movie, it really is. I think if you disliked this movie when it came out, I suggest rewatching it now. It holds up almost 18 years later as a fucking solid film. And to be honest, it's one of my preferred of the series.
Yeah, I love this as a remake. It is way up there, and I would even say, if we're going to compare them to the original, like, it is on par with the original. The original I like for a lot of different other reasons, but the remake I also would love for about the same. Like, they're both rated the exact same score in my letterbox. Like, I just love them both. And
if I had to rank, I would choose the remake first and the original after. I don't know if the remake is so entertaining, and I buy into Jessica Biel so much.
Yeah, and I don't know like which one I would put it first. Like, they're literally tied for me. It would probably go back and forth each time I talked about it.
I get that, because it's close for me too. Like, me saying that I like the remake more is not saying that the original is not good. The original is a fucking phenomenal film. I just really dig Jessica Biel's fucking performance, and certain scenes in that movie just really connect with me. And when I watched it, this week, 18 years later from when it first was released, that I was like, fuck yes.
Yep.
Fuck yes, this holds up. Fuck yes, this is good. This was probably one of the few from the series that I can say is as good as this is. Like, yeah, because I don't know if they can top this one personally.
Yeah, and we were talking about, like, that is one thing about this franchise. It is very fucking convoluted and hard to follow, just because of all the different remakes and reboots and prequels and retellings. It's confusing as hell, but I would say the 2003 remake and the original are the two top tier ones. The originals, sequels aren't as good. They're entertaining, but I don't call them as good a quality films. And like, yeah, then the random ones that came out after the remake aren't
like the beginnings, and then Texas made 3D and this, and then there's that other one where they like are in a car wreck and the sheriff comes and it's the same sheriff, but it's supposed to be prior to, like, there's two basically origins movies that neither one of them make any real sense. Like, it's just, it's yeah. Anyway, one day we'll cover the Texas Chainsaw Massacre series and talk about how we don't get what's going on. But let's move to our next film.
All right. So the next one we're going to talk about is, like, obviously all these are going to be classics in their own right, but John Carpenter's Halloween, which was released on October 25th of 1978. On a cold Halloween night in 1963, 6-year-old Michael Myers brutally murdered his 17-year-old sister, Judith. He was sentenced and locked away for 15 years, but on October 30th, 1978, while being transferred for a court date, a 21-year-old Michael Myers steals a car and escapes Smith's Grove. He returns to his quiet hometown of Haddonfield, Illinois, where he looks for his next victims. And then the remake plot is, Halloween, directed by Rob Zombie, was released August 31st, 2007. After spending 17 years in a mental institution, Michael Myers escapes and sets out to find his younger sister. He doesn't spare anyone who tries to interfere with his mission. Yeah, now this is probably the one that I'm going to be, like, when it comes to the remakes, that I will be talking about, that I'm not the biggest fan of the remake. Right off the bat, I am going to say the beginning half of this film, of the remake, I could care less about anything that happens. I cannot stand the family. I don't need a background story on why Michael Myers is disturbed and doing what he is doing. That takes away from the whole boogeyman aspect that the original portrays. But the later half of this is a retelling, almost scene for scene, just a lot more violent and exploitive of what happens in the original film.
Yeah, it's very much like Rob Zombie feels a need to constantly make killers victims, and I find that fucking annoying.
Yes.
That's my beef with Rob Zombie. I'm so tired. I get it, Rob Zombie. I get it. You were hurt as a child. I'm sorry. And now every single villain you feel needs to have this ridiculous backstory of trailer trash and bullied and abusive parents. But I can appreciate that those scenes are well acted, well directed. Even Cheryl, what's her name? Moon?
Yeah, Sherry Moon.
Sherry Moon. She's fine. She plays a stripper, which I feel like she did fine. She's a single mom stripper with some dead ass beat boyfriend.
Yeah, he was the one character. Well, the dialogue and the language is what just drove me nuts. That was unbelievable.
I feel like when Rob Zombie makes a movie, he's like, how often can I use fuck in a sentence? And the C word and other things. How often can I make sure that those words are integrated in my script?
Yeah, and how can I make sure that even young kids will say these things around their parents as well?
Perfect. Like, really represent the trash.
Yeah.
That being said, it is a more fast-paced movie compared to the first one. The first one is very much a 1970s film. It's a classic. You know, I think if you're a horror movie fan, most people like this movie or love it or praise it. It did a lot for slashers at the time. You know, I think they did a good job of character development. Jamie Lee Curtis became an icon for final girl status.
Yes.
Hands down. Even the little kids in it were really well done. And so much has been empathized and analyzed from this movie, that where I think Rob Zombie did build on this movie was everything after the trailer trash family. I liked how he made it a family connection, that the baby, his baby sister that he loved, ended up being adopted because the mom killed herself because she couldn't handle who her son had become. And I even get why your son killed those asshole bullies. I can even like stomach that of why that happened. But even then, that also takes him away from being less scary, because you feel like he did the right thing by getting rid of those bullies.
Yeah.
Right. But the Laurie character and the interactions between her and her girlfriends, that was some fucking mint writing. And I definitely praise Rob Zombie for that. The pool scene, the chase, the waking up in like the barn thing, very, very good.
Yep. The one part I will just kind of disagree with you on is I did not want the introduction of the family aspect into this, because I feel that is for me in the Halloween franchise, one of the weakest links is the whole Laurie is Michael Myers' sister.
See, I'm the opposite. I think that was a good storyline, and I wish they explored it more. I think it's stupid, personally, to not go with that storyline. I think it makes a hell of a lot more sense, and it's a lot more creepy.
Yeah, see, I found it more creepy just because it's like these are just no one related, and he just stalking for the hell of it.
Yeah, but then it's no different than any other stalker.
Right. I mean, but that's like,
Yeah.
I wish like if Rob Zombie was going to do it, I wish he would have tied that into the sequel instead of the first film.
See, I disagree. I had my only problem with the remake of Halloween is the trailer trash. Is not even the trailer trash. It's making my antagonist a victim.
Yeah.
I hate how he does that. I fucking hate. Like, I felt the same way about the Devil Rejects. I didn't want to feel sorry for those people. They were pieces of shit. Make me hate them. Don't make me try to feel bad when they get shot. I want them to get shot. That's me personally. Yet again, other people feel differently. That's absolutely fine. So I didn't mind that was his sister. He loved her. It was kind of the only thing he did love besides his mom. His mom couldn't handle the guilt of what he had done, so she kills herself. And I think Laurie, honestly, the young lady that they got to play Laurie was just fucking phenomenal. Like she nailed it as well. She was great.
Yeah, I was gonna say like Taylor Scout Compton, I think is her name, and yeah, she did a really good job. And this was Danielle Harris returning to the Halloween franchise as well, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And that one thing I will say that Rob Zombie does that I love is he brings in all these horror icons into his films.
Yes.
Like we had Brad Dourif as the sheriff, and Brad Dourif, I will have to say, like, one of the most heart-wrenching scenes is when he comes across his daughter being, like, just completely brutally, like, messed up from Michael Myers, and his reaction was just so heart-wrenching. But yeah, and I also don't like that a lot of the remakes for these new, like, our 80s movie maniacs, a lot of these remakes seem to want to go the route of making them large and super intimidating. Like Michael Myers was scrawny, slender, ghost-like figure in the original, and in this one he's just a mammoth of a man that's monstrous. Like it doesn't bother me as much when it's like Jason Voorhees and Leatherface, but in this I was just like I just don't feel like he needs to be that huge and intimidating. But at the same time, like I do like Tyler Maine's performance.
I'm on the opposite fence of you. I'm glad we didn't talk about this beforehand. I like that he is.
Oh, like, really?
I like that Rob Zombie took him and basically put him on roids, and like I don't know, he went to a really sick gym. I don't know where he was working out, maybe Gold's. I don't know, maybe he got some good protein supplements. But I did dig how fucking massive he was because he was more intimidating, and I bought into that. Now this is not by no stance. Like I think we should go on the record and say here, no Halloween movie can, for me, compare to the effect that the original had. So I don't want anyone here to think that by any stance I am arguing that Rob Zombie's Halloween is better than the original.
No.
And if you do think that, that's fine. Like you do you, whatever connects for a person. I respect the original too much. I think that the flow is there. I think the pacing is there. I think the character development is there. I think the kills are there for 1978. I think Donald Pleasant's performance as Crazy Dr. Loomis is just fucking out of this world. And, rest your soul, Donald Pleasant. You made the Halloween sequels bearable because you were in them.
That is one thing you brought up actually now that I just want to bring up too. Malcolm McDowell as Dr. Loomis. What'd you think?
I liked him. I thought he was great.
I was like, that is one thing I actually did appreciate was from the beginning is understanding how much Dr. Loomis how much time he put into Michael. Like, and I kind of
like how he's a little dark. I feel like it makes a kind of a sense that he's kind of a dick too.
Yeah, like because you get more of a background on Dr. Loomis in this film, and I gotta appreciate that because he gets called like using these murders for profit and stuff like that when he writes his book, and like especially in the sequels he gets even more ridiculed for just making a profit off of Michael Myers. But like, yeah, I like the darkness of him. And I like that that Rob Zombie gave him more of a life on the screen.
I agree. I really do think Rob Zombie is a phenomenal director. I think he has a very dark mind. I think he's able to bring fear to the screen. And I think the fear he brings to the screen is almost more intense and over the top, while John Carpenter's fear is much more subtle.
Yes.
And gets kind of like, it's like a cold that kind of gets into your bones and you can't leave. And like Rob Zombie's just like, you're going on the most fucking crazy roller coaster.
Yeah, this is in your face.
And you're holding on for the entire ride. And
yeah,
sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say, because one thing that actually this kind of brings back to the whole Asian versus Western world remakes was John Carpenter reminds me, like his Halloween reminds me of like the Japanese Ghost Story, where Rob Zombie's is the westernized version. Because in the original, John Carpenter just has Michael Myers just subtly in the background somewhere in like all these different scenes, and like it's one of those where you look or you miss him, but he doesn't do anything; he's just standing there. And I love that. Like Rob Zombie, I think does that a few times, but he doesn't take that route with it. He's more in your face, like you were saying. And that's one thing I like about these two differences is like, yep, you got your more hardcore, fast-paced, in-your-face action horror, and then you got your more slow burn, stuck in the shadows horror of John Carpenter's. I like that there's that difference.
Absolutely, and I feel like I have grown to love the Rob Zombie approach. And though I may dislike some of his script writing and find it a little over the top, though I may dislike his need to make a villain a quasi-protagonist at times, I think this is a really fucking solid movie. And I think if we really are honest and we compare it to a lot of the Halloween sequels, it's probably better than most of them.
I was going to bring that up, actually, because... Sorry, I keep interrupting you, but
no, that's fine.
But yeah, I was going to bring that up too. Like for me, this is decent enough. If I can just get past that first half, I'm fine with it. But it is definitely better for me personally. I like it better than the Halloween Thorn trilogy, so 4 through 6, and Resurrection.
Yeah,
I think I like 1, 2, 3, H2O, Halloween 18. I think I like them better than this.
Okay, so I like this. Oh, so first Halloween, original, 2018, and then this. Okay, I think this is the third best Halloween film.
Wow.
I do.
I like how there's that difference between us on this one.
Yeah, I'm not a huge Rob Zombie fan.
Right.
By any stance of the imagination. But I think respect is given where it should be given. And I think that he took this and made a true readaptation while keeping some traditional things there. And I think he does do a good job of creating fear, but it's a different kind of fear.
Yeah.
And it's a fear that, as I said, it's like going on a fucking crazy ass roller coaster and you're just holding on for dear life. And I think 2018, the reason why I like it more than 2007 is because I think it's a better sequel to the first one. I like Halloween 2, don't get me wrong. That's probably my third or my fourth. Like the sequel's Halloween 2, where Jamie Lee Curtis is in the hospital. I think that's a great film. I really enjoy that one. But I just think 2018 did a really good job of tying it back into the first. And I think Jamie Lee Curtis's performance in it is what sold it for me.
Yep, I can see that.
Right. So, but I honestly think that over time, I have definitely warmed up to this, and I don't think it deserves the shit fest that people dump onto it.
And see, now it's funny because I was the exact opposite opinion that I have now. I used to love this remake. Love it. I watched it all the time. And then over the years, I just got sick of it. And I just I think it's that Rob Zombie dialogue just drug it down even more for me.
Yeah, it's his script writing.
Yeah. So whenever he makes a movie, I want him to be director, but someone else write the script.
Yeah, and I think he can have some creative control in the script because sometimes there's swearing in there where I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. I just wish he would stop trying to include his friends in every single film. Like, just come on, Rob Zombie.
Work with new people.
We're like, I get it. Like, your wife is hot and you want to show her off all the time. I get it. Yes, you have a hot wife. Congratulations. But like, I don't know. I think Rob Zombie, though, is pure talent. I really do. I think his music's good. I think he has creativity ability, and I think this movie proves it. So I will give the original props, but as I said, that this one isn't far behind.
And that's cool. I did not know that. And I like that we're different on this one.
Yeah.
And where was I going to go? And I wanted to bring this up too. If there was a way to watch the R-rated version of the 2007 remake, I would like it better than this unrated one.
Oh, yeah.
Because for some reason, he decided in the unrated version that he's not going to have the 4 kills of the security guards, and that's how he escapes, which those kills were fucking amazing when I seen it in theater and like added to the body count. Instead, he's going to have these douchebag, white, trashy security guards rape a woman in his Michael Myers freaking cell. I'm like, we didn't need that.
Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about. Like, Rob Zombie just integrate stuff for shock value. I think he just needs someone to kind of like
rein him in,
moderate it. You know what I mean? Like, you just
Yes.
need someone to help him with the creative juices and be like, no, Rob, that's not a great idea.
Right? Like, you need to pull back on this a little bit. Like,
Rob,
keep
stop
those
trying to be
murders in
shocking.
there.
We get it, okay? We fucking get it. You're shocking. You're Rob Zombie. We got it.
Right.
And then, have them directed for sure. But our next one is also a very controversial issue, I'm sure. So let's get to that one.
All right. So this next one, we are talking Friday the 13th, which was released on May 9th, 1980, and is about a group of counselors that are brutally killed one by one at a summer camp held at Camp Crystal Lake, when the entrepreneur Steve Christie reopens the site, which was shut for years. And the Friday the 13th remake, released February 13th, 2009, a group of collegian decide, that's a weird term, collegians.
Yeah, I know, right?
A group of college students decide to spend the weekend at Crystal Lake, which proves fatal for them. They come across the deadly and vengeful Jason Voorhees, who is waiting to kill them. And in this one, I will say I tried to go see this opening night at the theater because, as you all know, I am the Friday of the Friday Nightmares podcast. I am a Jason fanboy all the way through. Unfortunately, I think everyone and their mother had the same idea because this movie was sold out at every single showtime, everywhere that was every theater. I was so in shock and happy to see that.
30 years later.
Yeah, 30 years later, and it still had that pull. And I ended up going to see it on Valentine's Day by myself because my wife was working at the time. And I said, screw it. I'm going to go see this movie without her because I know she doesn't care. This is all me. I'm going to go see it. So I went, bought myself some Valentine's Day candies and went and sat inside the theater and watched it on Valentine's Day.
Nice.
So Jason, in a way, was my Valentine on February 14th.
So I bought advance tickets for this.
Did you really?
Yeah, I did. With my ex at the time. We went. And I bought tickets for my ex, me, and I think 2 other friends. And I went to the sold-out theater, and the opening scene happened. I should say the opening 15 minutes.
Yes.
And some dude yells out at the end of it and goes, man, if that's the tits and gore we're going to get in the first 15 minutes of this movie, can you imagine what the rest is going to be like? And the auditorium exploded in laughter. I have never been, besides Freddy vs. Jason, to a premiere that had the energy that did.
Yeah.
It was high energy. Like we're talking to fucking horror fans here, okay? Everyone knows that we were excited to see Friday the 13th, the remake. What we really want to get to here is, did the remake deliver? I think the remake does deliver. It's such a Michael Bay production with explosions every fucking where. And it's a really solid film.
Yeah, it's very, like, the one thing that doesn't take away from it, but like it doesn't feel like a Friday the 13th, is how clean and pristine the picture quality is. Like it's definitely a modern telling of the film. But this is technically a remake of 1, 2, and 3, all wrapped into one, which is one thing I loved, because when I first heard about this movie, I'm going, okay, how are they going to do this? Because the first movie is Pamela Voorhees, and that is not going to bring the audience. They need a way to bring Jason in, and I loved how they did this. And it
was so smart how they did this. They did basically 3 mini movies. They
kind
of covered off all the bases. They had Sack had Jason for, and let's be real here. If you were going to see Friday the 13th and you weren't a super big horror fan, you would have not understood the significance of the Sack head. You would have just been like, he doesn't have his mask yet. That's interesting. But for all the people who got that, they were probably like, right? Like,
Yep, I was just like, this is awesome. Yes.
right. So for all the little Scotty 2 hotties that were out there eating their Valentine's Day candy alone in the movie theater watching on February 14th. It was, I think you're right. And I think it's interesting that Friday the 13th was released on May 9th in 1980. And then they kind of got their shit together and they were like, you know what? When we remake this movie, we should probably release it on a Friday the 13th.
Right.
But I think the characters in the remake, you got a lot of like TV stars. You got Willa Ford, who was a big fucking R&B pop star at the time. And they got a lot of good looking people. And you got some stupendous tits. And my friends and I made fun of that line for years afterwards.
Excellent nipple placement, baby. Excellent nipple placement.
It was fucking, and that guy is awesome. Like, Trent is such a dick, but he is a really, and of course, if you've seen the Friday the 13th documentary, Camp Crystal Lake Memories, he talks about how proud he was to be in that movie and how people recognize him from that.
Yeah.
Like he was one of the few people that were like, oh yeah, I love that I was in this fucking film. Like, it was great.
Right. Like, he was so thrilled and happy to be there. And yeah, you could see it like in his performance on the screen too, that he's just having fun being that asshole character. And like, and they even give that little, like, just kind of chuckle to him at the end when like when that girl's body hits the car and he shrieks like a woman, just like high pitched, like girly scream. And he just shrieks. He's gone.
He reminded me of Christian Glover, not because like they're the same character, but just memorable.
Yeah.
Like, you remember Trent. Like, honestly, like, what her fucking face is that was in it the most, that went to go find this dude's sister.
Yeah, like
I didn't give two shits about her. She was just like there.
Yeah, like literally the only two most memorable characters from this film for me was Jared Padalecki looking for his sister.
Yep.
And then the guy that played Trent. Like, they were the only two that I really like remember.
Like nailed it
visually. Yeah.
They nailed it, right? And they were just fucking likable people. Like, you got behind them and they were the ones that kind of stuck with you. And we watched the first one recently. And I know there's many people out there that know this movie off by heart. I do not. Not that I don't like it. I like it. I just don't know it to the level that other people do. And it really is more of a giallo. Who's the killer? Who is it? Right? Like, is that what a giallo is? Am I using the phrase right there? Okay. And
kind of like a whodunit.
A whodunit, right? And it's a really, really kind of like fun little murder mystery. Kevin Bacon's great in it. It's fun.
And for nudie, #bacon boner.
#bacon boner. I just really think what happened with the remake is Michael Bay, who was one of the producers, was like, son of a bitch, let's put this fucking shit on roids. Like, they jacked it up. And did you recognize that one of the dudes in the opening scenes was JD from Scrubs, who's banging the chick in the tent?
I was gonna look into that more.
Yeah,
I never
it's
did get
JD from
because
Scrubs.
I wasn't sure if it was him or not.
It was JD from Scrubs. Yeah. So
I remember you brought it up,
cool.
but
yeah, it was.
Because I remember you brought it up, and I just didn't get a chance to look into it. But I'm like, is that really JD?
Oh, I know. Why would you even fucking question, son?
Because it's you. No.
You better watch who you're talking about. Running your mouth like you know me. You know where that song's from? Nelly.
I recognize it, but I don't know.
Am number one. No matter how you like it or sit down. Anyway, okay, we're not doing raps here, but like that opening scene where they go to Camp Crystal Lake and they're hiking in the 2009 remake. It's fucking mint.
Yes,
like it's intense. The sleeping bag kill, he's coming at her with his fucking machete, or when they're in the lodge and he's coming up through the fucking floor. Like,
yeah,
damn.
The one thing I will say, because in the original 1, 2, and 3, they are at Camp Crystal Lake at the campgrounds. Like, they're even at Peckinack Lodge in part 2.
Yep.
But in the remake, they don't go that route of, hey, we're going to reopen the camp again and blah, blah, blah. And oh my God, another death. Let's reopen it again. Oh my God, more deaths. Why does this keep happening to us?
Yeah.
But no, they do kind of what is more modern, more modern and realistic, which is college students going up north to a cabin on a lake to party.
Yeah.
And that I feel is more fitting of the time. And like actually works really well. Like, I would have loved to have seen more stuff happen on the campground. Like, some of the people run from the house and end up running to the campground on accident. Because I wish that there wasn't a lot of that tunnel action. Like, I like that there was tunnels.
Oh, that was such a fucking Michael Bay shit. Tunnel was all like, I remember being in the movie theater and I turned to my ex and I went, Michael Bay explosions! Loud noises! And he started laughing because every single Michael Bay film is like, loud noises and explosions randomly!
Yeah, exactly.
That's what Michael Bay likes to do. And
like,
that's fine. That's how he rolls. But
I do like the idea of the tunnels because, there's always that, well, how the hell does Jason always get in front of the victim when he's a slow, lumbering beast? And it's like, in this, it makes sense because he's running, he's fast, and he jumps, like, he has his ways. But I wish they wouldn't have spent so much time down there. I wish they would have spent more time with them running through the campground and, like, old cabins and stuff like that. I thought that would have been cool, like, just seeing more abandoned old cabins as they're trying to hide from them. I thought that
I agree. And I think that this is a really good reflection of 2009.
Yeah.
I'm glad they waited till 2009, not the early 2000s, because I think it would have been really shitty. I think towards the end of 2009, or I should say the beginning of releasing this, it just had a different flavor to it. And this one did relatively well. And I think the feedback for this one was relatively high, if I recall. Most people liked it because it combined, because really, you're right, no one's going to go see, besides hardcore horror fans, a Pamela Voorhees remake.
Yeah, because the mainstream audience only knows Jason Voorhees.
Now, that's not to say that that wouldn't be a good movie.
No.
And hopefully they do that. But that's being done for people like you and I and people that listen to this podcast. That's not being done for, because I have so much Jason gear, and the reason why is because it's fucking low-hanging fruit, and people can buy it, and they know what it is. For fuck's sakes, I'm wearing Jason socks right now.
Right. Like, Jason is just an icon.
He's an icon, like Freddy, right? So there's, or even I would argue Chucky from Child's Play.
Yeah.
They're just more familiar characters. So I want to kind of just flash forward to the ending scene in both. I love the stand down between Mrs. Voorhees and the final counselor. What's her name?
I think it's Annie. Dave Z, don't kill us.
It's
but I think it's Alice.
Right? And Dave Z's like off of the fucking
Dave Z's screaming right now. Like, why?
We shall never speak again. And that's your favorite movie. You should know.
No, part one is one of, like, probably sixth in the franchise for me if I put them in order. I like it, but
Andrea
it's not
King.
one of my favorite.
Well, you should know. So the showdown between Alice and Miss Voorhees, I think, is legendary.
Yes.
I think it's a better showdown between Whitney and her brother's character. I can't remember her brother's name now, but I think it's a better showdown than that.
Yeah, so do I.
But I do, she got flack if you watch the Camp Crystal Lake documentary, because she'll say, "Hey, Jason, say hi to mommy in hell." I actually don't mind that line. I remember when that came out in the theaters, and I was like, probably the delivery could have been closer. Like, say hi to mommy in hell, I think would have been better than like a pause and then hell. But
yeah, I'm not sure. Like, that's one of those lines where I think it's been overused a lot. Like, it never bothered me hearing it, but I can see why people complain, because that's always used. See you in hell in almost all horror films, like, especially in that era.
It's say hi to mommy in hell.
Yeah, but it's the whole
different.
It's different, but it is still the see you in hell in a way.
I think it's different enough.
Like I say, I have no complaints with it. I just see why I can see why others would.
I think it's the delivery of it personally. I don't know. You can talk on our page. I don't know. Do people like the line, say hi to mommy in hell? Do they think it should have been say hi to mommy in hell? All one, like, big sentence. Or should it just not been there at all and she just slices him and doesn't
I think it should have just been say hi to your mother, or say hi to your mom, like, or say hi to mommy, just without the hell part.
Fuck you, Jason.
Or fuck you, Jason. Yeah.
Fuck you, Jason. Fuck you and all the beautiful people that are in this movie. Which is true. They went and, like, they basically got the hottest people they could find. They're like, you're hot, you're in, you're hot, you're in, you're hot, you're in, you're hot, you're in.
Yep, that's pretty much every remake that we watched has hot people. Like
just good looking people. Well, except for the, like, Child's Play. The children aren't hot.
No, but I mean, even, like...
And I thought the cop was good looking, but he's not your typical... Yeah, he's no Chris Sarandon, who's my boyfriend. That's a shame. I was born in the wrong decade. But yeah, so if we had to rank them, if, coming down to it, and we had to be really... Oh, and the shower kill, by the way, I wanted to make one connection. So do you remember the scene where one of the camp counselors goes back from playing Monopoly and goes into the showers, and there's that shower scene?
Yep.
Or no, she's the one that banged, and she opens up the shower curtain, and then the killer's behind her. They did a shout out to that in the remake.
Yep, with Jason reaching through the shower curtains to grab the blonde.
Yeah. Yeah, like it was really like, I thought that was really cool. I really actually appreciated in the remake the subtle shout outs that they did to the original.
Yeah, because I mean, there's the sleeping bag kill from like part 7. Like, I mean, just from the franchise in general, like they do a lot of homages. Like, hell, even in the background somewhere, you see in Jason's collection and like his tunnels, is you see a wheelchair up on the wall, which is a nod to part 2's character. That's in the wheelchair. Like, there's just a lot of like cool nods to the franchise throughout this movie. Like, you could tell whoever, like the people behind this appreciated the original franchise.
Well, and I feel like the people who did this were like, okay, let's give reasons and facts to why things happen.
Yeah.
You know, and I really respect that. So if we're going to give a ranking here, Scott, which one do you prefer? Do you prefer the 1980 or the 2009?
2009.
Wow.
Like, I'll give you my full franchise ranking right now because I have it memorized. It is.
Oh my God. Okay.
It is.
Hold on. Let me get ready.
It is 2, 4, 5, 6, 2009, 7, 1, 8.
So 1's almost at the bottom.
Yep. 1. Sorry, not 8. Yeah. 1, 8. Goes to hell, X.
So 7 is above 1.
Yep.
Dave C., I just want to let you know that Scott thinks that Friday the 13th part 7 is below the original. You can unfriend him now on Facebook.
Yep. I like the original, but it's not one that I go to revisit because I am a Jason boy. I want Jason.
That's fair. But without Miss Voorhees,
we wouldn't have him. That's why I say I respect it.
Absolutely. And I'm just teasing you about your ratings, Scott. Like, you do you. I don't know how Dave C's going to feel, but you do you. Just kidding, Dave C. But this is hard for me because I feel like there's such different movies. And I really respect what the first one did. I just really respect how it really tried to, it threw you off. You would not know who that killer was the first time you saw it.
Yeah.
And I feel for me, it was a detriment that I was too old and saw all the other ones, so I knew.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I'm going to have to go with my heart and put the original first.
Well, I was just going to say, how about what would be 1, 2, 3, and then the remake, since that's pretty much what the remake was. Would you put the original trilogy above the remake? Because for me, if I put it as a trilogy, like one piece.
See, I can't do that. I don't think that's fair. Yeah. I don't think this movie covers enough from 2 and 3 that I can, like, all it does is talk about where he got his mask.
Yeah, like, but yeah, I mean, we also wouldn't have Jason at all in the movie if it wasn't for them covering 2 and 3.
Yeah, of course, I get that, but I don't consider that part of what we're comparing. I don't.
Okay, fair enough.
I don't.
Yeah, like I would put the original trilogy above that. Like,
for sure, absolutely. But if I look at just the quality of film, because Jason is in the first one, we see him come out of the water.
Yeah. Which
led to like, if that didn't happen,
we would never have a sequel.
We would never have what we have now, right? So it was very smart that they did that. So I'm going to say the original and then the remake. And if I look at the series for me, it's the original, the second, the fourth, the remake, the third, and then the rest. I'm not even going to bother ranking the rest. They're all just fucking there. I think the second and the fourth I really liked. I even like the psychic one. I enjoy that one.
Yeah, 6, that's part 7.
7. Which one's the one they go to Manhattan? 8. Right. Or Vancouver.
Yeah, Vancouver.
But I think the first one, I just can't shake how good that movie was for the time that it was made, the character development that's in it. But Friday the 13th, 2009 did a hell of a fucking good job. And it's a hell of a remake. And to me, it's a blueprint of what other remakes will be.
All right. So the next film we will be talking about, or I guess next set of films we'll be talking about for this episode, is A Nightmare on Elm Street, which was originally released November 16th, 1984. A young girl realizes that she has to stay awake at any cost to avoid the clawed killer who is butchering her friends one by one in their dreams. And A Nightmare on Elm Street, the remake, was initially released April 27th, 2010. After Chris and her boyfriend Dean died to a mysterious dream, Nancy, their friend, who has been having similar dreams, realizes that the killer finds his victims when they fall asleep. I'm going to start off right now, like with my original thoughts on this when I first seen it in theaters, because I went and seen the 2010 remake, I believe, opening day. And while I enjoyed parts of it, I never went back and revisited it because I was just like, that was a fun one-time watch. But I had to say, like, my initial impressions was I loved Jackie Earle Haley's version of Freddy Krueger. Um, but upon rewatching it for our show, I grew to love it even more. There's still a lot of issues that I have, like with Nancy is not a great final girl for this remake, where Nancy in the original, you could get behind her. She was a lot more of a person you could just kind of follow and root for. But this one, she was how did you put it? Bland white bread or something like that?
She was like bland white rice.
Yeah, white rice, yes.
And you were just like,
It's
There wasn't
filling,
much
but it
of
doesn't
a
have any taste.
personality. And maybe that was supposed to be because she was scarred from the sexual abuse that she would have experienced.
Right.
So maybe that was the purpose of the character, which I can get. But yeah, I think that's the only real. Yeah, this is not a horrible film. And I want to give a shout out to Kill the Class, Horror Coliseum, episode number 64, released first on 2019, March 4th. And they reviewed this movie, and they were one of the first horror podcasts that I heard that didn't hate it and actually did a real fair review of it. So I will be stealing a lot from what they said because I agreed with what they said. And I listened to this episode almost 2 years ago, and it still rings very true today. Obviously, the movie hasn't changed, but I think that the longer we get away from the initial release of this, and if you really look at the film and go, okay, I'm going to take off my Robert Englund fan hat and pretend for 1 second that someone else could possibly be in the role, or the movie could possibly be different from the original, you may have a good time with this film.
Yes, because I think the major issue is a lot of people cannot get past that it's not Robert Englund, which, that is the downside when it comes to remaking a horror film with an antagonist that is very vocal and and not hidden behind a mask. So the face is especially because of how popular Freddy was throughout the 80s. And he is an icon, and that face will be recognizable for years to come. And it's hard to do when you're trying to remake this and kind of give the new Freddy a new look and a different voice.
His voice wasn't the best choice. I don't know if that was Jackie Earle Haley's voice or if
it was.
It sounded really different from when he was in The Watchmen.
Well, what it was is they use a kind of a voice synthesizer changer, because they even did that with Freddy, because if you hear Freddy, or even did that with Robert Englund, because if you hear Robert Englund's character in the first movie, it's Robert Englund's voice, and the ones after that, it's still Robert Englund's voice, but it's enhanced and has a more deeper sounding voice to it. So I think that's kind of what they went with Jackie Earle Haley, because it is his voice, but it's just kind of enhanced a little bit.
Makes sense. So when I first saw this film, I was definitely one of those people that was disappointed by it. I feel like the more films I have watched coming at it 11 years later, because this was released in 2010, I really appreciate the reimagining they did of this story. And I think that's what we need to understand with remakes, is remakes can take down different routes. They can actually be a true remake, which is basically like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I would consider probably a remake from the 2003 one. That's the closest to the original film. They're driving in a van, they pick up a hitchhiker, you have some classic shots of the house similar to the first one. Yeah. There's some differences, but generally speaking, the plot follows the same paint by numbers of what's happening, right? There's some small differences, but it follows the same train. This does not. We open with a diner scene in the remake that is fucking haunting. I forgot how good that diner scene was. It's a good scene.
Yeah, that's a really, really good scene. Because I forgot that the character died right then. I was thinking, oh yeah, he'll have his dream, and that's where you see Freddy, but he doesn't die yet till later in the movie. And I'm like, oh no shit, he's still dreaming. And I one thing that kind of also haunts, makes it kind of haunting, is that dream song, Dream.
Yeah, it was a very good use of that song. being put in. Now, if we look at the original Nightmare on Elm Street, an opening with Tina and her dream, that opening is, it's historical. Wes Craven took a concept at that time that, I'm sure there had been other movies about dreams and killers and like images in your dreams, but this was something that was uncontrollable and that was based off of, experiences if he had seen a homeless person and reading articles about kids actually dying in their sleep. It was monumental in horror history.
Yeah.
Nothing can ever take away from the impact that opening scene had with Tina, or when Tina dies on the ceiling of her bedroom, especially for 1984. The blood that's shown, the fact that it's just after having sex, her boyfriend watching in the corner, it was terrifying.
The most iconic horror kills. Wes Craven, like this is what cemented Wes Craven as a horror movie director, and like pretty much what created New Line, because New Line Cinemas really didn't do much, and this is, I think they even call it, this is the house that Freddy built.
Absolutely. So if we take that as that, and yet again, by us acknowledging that the remake isn't a shitty film, is not by any chance that we're saying that the original is on par with it or not better than it. Obviously, I think any person could argue from an objective film point that the creativity that went into that 1984 film tops the creativity that went into the 2010 film. So already there. I think if we look at the script writing, yes, the 1984 film had a better script. It was more inventive at the time. It had we had Johnny Depp in it, for God's sakes, who went on to become a major fucking star. And we think of that bed scene where the blood shoots up from the bed. Like, thinking back to that being in 1984, like, you and I can't even imagine going to the movie theater in 1984. So the people that would have been going to the movie theater would have been at least 16. So they would have been born in the late 60s. Going to see that film, holy fuck, what an impact.
Yeah.
So, we got to take things in historical context of where they've been released. And the reason why I'm building that up is because if we look at this as a 2010 reimagining of a story, it's very relevant to today's times. The opening scene takes place in a diner. We have some conversations that there's not much to do in this sleepy but fuck town. There's a little bit of flirtation that goes on with some of the kids that are in it, but it's not that cheesy 1980s style of flirtation. It's a little bit different. We have the funeral scene. We have some creepy interventions of Freddy throughout the movie. And then we have some really fucking dark lines. Like when he's outside with Tina's dog. I believe still we keep Tina's name in the remake.
No, they never. It's
Kristen.
Yeah, it's Kristen, I think.
Kristen. So when he's outside with Kristen, who's kind of the new Tina, and he's petting the dog and he fucking kills it. He says, "What? I was just petting it." And Jerry pointed this out on that episode 64 that I referred to, and it's a fucking creepy line. Like how that's delivered, and she's outside in the mist. That's creepy.
Yeah, well, that's the one thing I want to say too. Like, this brings back the Jackie Earle Haley is kind of channeling the Robert Englund of Nightmare on Elm Street's 1 through 3, where he's dark and creepy, and his sense of humor is very fucking morbid.
Super morbid.
He's not a comic book, or comic relief like he becomes in the later parts of the series. He's more back the original, where Freddy is scary and terrifying.
Absolutely. And the way he says things to these kids before he's going to kill them is, I can understand how his voice over top, if you're used to Freddy's voice, because we've been ingrained with Robert Englund's voice. But just as an FYI to everyone listening, Robert Englund's not going to live forever. So just so we're all clear, one day he will leave this planet and he will not be able to reprise his role anymore. And as we've seen, if companies need to keep the rights to movies, you need to keep making movies. So we may one day have another remake of the Nightmare on Elm Street series, and it may be an adaptation of the story, and that is okay. And I think what people's biggest problem with this film is if they had called it anything else, if they had called it, I don't know, Gardner Slasher, I think it would have got more praise because it's not a shitty film. It's not. Yeah. The problem is they slap Nightmare on Elm Street on there, and you have a bunch of, in my opinion, Nightmare on Elm Street enthusiasts, including myself. I love the series. And when I first saw this, I could not separate the 1984 to the 2010. Obviously, of course, I think the original is better. That goes without saying for all the reasons we gave earlier. But I do not think the 2010 version is bad.
No, I think the one thing that for me personally, I wish they would have done a little more with in the remake is get a little more creative with the kills and some of the
Yeah.
nightmare sequences, because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the kills in this were like stab in the stomach, slice of the throat,
Mm-hmm.
where, and you know, the original, it's like Tina going up on the wall and then fucking Johnny Depp pouring blood out of the bed and just like,
Well, Chris's kill is pretty.
yeah, I'll say that
graphic.
one is I'll say that one is
Right.
definitely like the Tina kill of the
Yeah,
movie.
that was a throwback to a modern day Tina kill. But I agree with you, and that's a kind of constructive critique. That's a I didn't like the movie because it wasn't Robert Englund in it. Like that's that's a constructive critique that you're giving
Yeah.
of what would have made it more gory, more scary for you. I honestly think some of the lines that Jackie Earl Haley delivers haunts you. How's this for a wet dream?
Yeah, that one
Like,
just especially with the fact that they took his backstory, instead of making him a child killer, he was a fucking pedophile.
And I think it's Jesse that he kills, and he says, you know, the brain can still, once the heart
Yes.
stops, so we still have 6 more minutes to play.
I love that line. It is
Like-
so demented.
And let's give prop to this 2010 film. I understand why they couldn't have done this in 1984, so I'm not faulting the 1984 film when I say this. But let's give props to the 2010 film having the guts to make him a pedophile, like to make
Yes.
him someone who is guilty of being a pedophile, and a graphic one too. Like he was scratching these kids to the
Yeah.
point where they had claw marks down their back. Like that's
Yeah.
that's
And
disturbing.
and when he's like haunting these, and the fact that he's haunting these kids is not to get revenge on the parents like in the original. He's doing it to get revenge on them for telling on him,
Yes.
which is even more
Yes.
fucked up.
Yes. And, you know, you can argue, I know Jerry talked about this and with Jane Kenneth, and that they all went to the same preschool, you know, and then they forgot. Well, obviously there was something done to help them forget, probably therapy, because they were sexually molested and physically injured by Freddy Krueger. So obviously probably a lot of work went into trying to get them to forget the trauma that they experienced. And I like how they kind of sewn back and show that other people that attended this preschool have been killed. So yes, there's a handful of them that have met each other because they've gone to the same middle school and stuff, but we can see that there's other people that have died that they have no connection with, except for when they research it and they see that they went to the same preschool. So the film is covering itself there.
Yep. The only thing on like that whole area where they're trying to make them forget, I didn't know what you thought about this, but I wanted to get your opinion on this because I thought it instantly when I was watching the movie, was when they're going through Nancy's house and they're trying to find any information they can, and they just happen across a dresser out in their living room full of their old pictures of them in preschool. It's like, if you're trying to keep your little child from remembering what happened back then, would you be keeping pictures in an easily accessible spot that would trigger that memory? Like, I think I would have destroyed those pictures.
Well, yeah, but I guess it's of your child, and maybe you don't want to, or for sake of like plot continuing of how they're going to find out, right? I agree. I think that part is a little dicey, which is where I will argue that some of the script writing in this probably could have been cleaned up a bit. I don't think Nancy was the best selection for who played Nancy. I think she was really dull, and maybe if that was the point of her character because of the abuse, that's fine. I did like the hospital scene. There was a lot of little throwaways here. Like, we remember when Nancy was in the hospital in the 1984 version and she pulls Freddy's hat out.
Yep.
And she's trying to avoid being put to sleep. Same thing is happening in this one. I did like her relationship with Quinn, though I found them the two weakest actors, and really they probably should have had Kristen and Jesse were the stronger ones.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, like, that is like the one thing, like the characters in this besides Freddy weren't as memorable, like Nancy and Johnny Depp's character, and I'm terrible with names besides the main character, but Nancy and Johnny Depp's character in the original, they're memorable just because they have like more personality. And I think you just kind of like
would Johnny Depp's character honestly be more memorable if it wasn't Johnny Depp? Like, real talk.
I think at least I think the only part that would make him memorable then would be the scene in the beginning when they're at Tina's house and he's telling his mother about the he's staying the night at his friend's house and he turns on the tape and it's supposed to be like an airport noise. Just because that whole scene's memorable to me, so I think that's why I remember him. Yeah,
I think if we're real honest here, it's because it was Johnny Depp.
Oh, I mean, yeah, that's 90%
Right.
of it.
If it was some other dude, it would be like, hey, remember that really sick bed kill
Yeah.
of that guy?
That's true.
The reason why we remember is because it's Johnny Depp, and horror fans like to cling on to anyone that started off in horror and went on to become a huge movie star. Makes us feel good. I think Nancy, I will agree with you about Nancy. I think a lot of people will remember Heather Langenkamp more than anyone else, but I think Johnny Depp only is because of who he is, not because of that role.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point there, actually.
Right. But that doesn't, yet again, we're not taking away from the 1984 movie. No. So please don't be bombing our page with, that we don't like the 1984 movie, because obviously for me, the 1984 movie is a solid 10 out of 10.
Yep. Same here.
Like, nothing can touch it for that time. And I do really appreciate with looking at these remakes and thinking about, okay, this movie is being made, if we look at 1984 to 2010, that's 26 years later. The world has changed a lot. A movie that may have worked for, 1984 may not work in 2010. And I think that even though this wasn't a scene-by-scene remake, though they still had some things like Jesse going to jail and the bed scene with Chris, who really was one of the strongest actresses in this film.
Yep.
The body bag scene that Nancy sees when she's awake in the school. So I guess the idea is that Freddy's become so powerful that you don't need to be asleep to see him. That's the one thing I didn't really get about the film. Like, she's clearly awake in the halls and then sees Chris in the body bag, throwback to the 1984. And this is where I'm talking about with the script issues. Like, that to me is a script issue because it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It's almost like dream child logic, only there's no pregnancy, unless that's what they were making fun of. You remember that Kill the Cast you were on, talking about a fetus dreaming.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
That movie. Oh boy.
Right. So I don't know if they were making fun of that. I don't think they were. I think it was just, clumsy writing on that part.
Yeah, I think so too.
Jackie Earle Haley's makeup, it was all right. I think it could have been better. He kind of looked like he had no nose. Like, his face was like...
Yeah, well, I know the reasoning behind that, because before this movie came out, I read an article somewhere about the makeup they chose, because when they show him in the trailer, it's just like a quick glimpse. Mm-hmm. But apparently they were trying to emulate a real burn victim, and a lot of burn victims, like the nose is gone and all that. So that's where...
So they were trying to make it more realistic.
Yeah, like they made his look more realistic, where in the 80s, it's almost like a comic book version of somebody being burned.
It really was more like a fantasy story with a lot more dark gore that was thrown into it. Now, if we look at, the final ending of both films, so let's talk about the realistic quickly of both endings of both films. So in the original, we all know Nancy sets up a whole bunch of fucking booby traps and, like, Home Alone's the shit out of the house and you know, manages to confront Freddy. I always love the scene where they're running around in the basement. I always find that scene really funny because it's like they're playing peekaboo.
Right.
Which I wonder when, we look at the fact that Freddy was always like, let's play hide and go seek in 2010.
Oh, yeah.
I wonder if that was a little tie-in. There's a lot of things when you watch them back to back, you kind of go,
yeah.
Like, maybe that was a time. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe that's just me, making connections that weren't there. That could be possible as well. And then obviously in the remake, we have Quinn and Nancy go to the boiler room factory where he was killed, in the room where I guess he was staying, where he kept all the kids' pictures, what didn't really make sense because he molested them at the school. It's not like he took them to the boiler room. I guess maybe he took their pictures there. Like,
yeah, I was gonna say, because I'm wondering, like, because at first I was wondering, like, if like he took the pictures at the school in the maintenance room, because I'm thinking, but then like I start questioning because they talk about he takes me to his cave, and that cave is in the boiler room. So it makes me wonder, like, okay, did he take them back to the boiler room, or did it go happen at the school?
Yeah, but when they go to the conflict, is that at the school? The final conflict? I thought it was like at some random factory where the parents burned.
Yeah, see, I'm trying to remember. I thought it was the factory. Like, that's the part where I was confused.
Yeah,
like
so
the caves in the factory.
Writing.
Yeah,
that's the problem with this film, right? So, like, as you can see, Scott and I are giving critiques of this film where critiques are needed, but it's not because Robert Englund wasn't in it or I'm sorry.
Right, yeah, I have no issues with Freddy Krueger in this movie.
Like, that's not the problem. The problem is it's so inconsistent with, logic of where they're going. But anyway.
Yep. Oh, and I do want to bring up one thing about that Jackie Earle Haley brought to his performance to make Freddy more his own. And it's just something very subtle. but it's when he is stalking his victims in the dream, and it's always like that shot where you just see his claw, and he just rubs the claws together, and you hear that like that. I don't know why, but that always unnerves me. I just like it's like that's like his signature. Like I'm anticipating this kill, like, and his fingers are just getting ready to kill.
Well, he was becoming excited too, right?
Yeah, so I just love that little addition there.
Absolutely. I think that's a really good point. Yeah, we're bringing up some really good values and some good constructive feedback of what was truly wrong with this film, and a lot of it just had to do with poor writing and putting script ideas together and not kind of following through with,
and a little bit of the casting choice
and the casting choices. Yeah, and some characters were just really weak, which really is what hurt a lot of this film. But if we look at the final scene, so Quinn and Nancy are there, and Nancy falls asleep, and Quinn's supposed to stay awake. We all know Quinn falls asleep, and so Freddy just slashes him across the chest, and then he hears Nancy, and he's like, "I'm gonna go take down your girlfriend."
Yeah.
Leaves Quinn, who eventually wakes up, which I guess you would work up from those injuries. I don't quite get that part, but I guess that's what happened. What do we think of Nancy and Freddy's conflict in the remake compared to Nancy and Freddy's final conflict in the original?
Honestly, compared to the original, it's a bit lackluster because I think the whole, like, while being a little bit just over the top with the booby trap setup, Nancy and that was just more prepared because she was like, all right, I'm determined to do this. I'm determined to take him out. I'm determined to bring him into the real world where he can get arrested.
Yeah.
And like I just kind of think I like that because it has the cat and mouse chase mixed with, like, just clever, the final girl being very clever on how to take out Fred. Where in this, it like the ending's already kind of fading from me. It just felt like a real quick showdown as soon as he got out of the dream. It like didn't last long.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think he said some pretty creepy lines to her.
Yes.
Like how she's wearing that dress, and he's like, "This was always my favorite dress."
You were always my favorite.
You were like, he's a very creepy pedophile, like fucking playing that shit up pretty good. Locking her in her room, in her bed. She can't get out of her bed. She's constantly being forced down. I think there's some good dialogue between him and her. Honestly, I think these are both, for me, I enjoyed both separately. I think if I had to give credit to which one was probably more creative, I may be slated to go towards 1984, but I wonder if that's because it came first. If I had honestly watched these two at the same time and I knew nothing about the original Nightmare on Elm Street, I don't know if I really would have had a problem with that. Yeah,
I was like, because the ending isn't awful. It just felt like it went by too fast. Because like a lot of the cool stuff was when they were in the dream, before she brought him out. And where in the original, it was a little in the dream and more of him outside of the world. And I kind of like the whole aspect of she's locked inside the house because of her mother. And she's like screaming for help for her dad. And her dad can't even get inside. And he's trying to bust in the door while Freddy's chasing her around and all that stuff, which I think just kind of builds the tension more.
Well, and in both, she brought Freddy into the real world, right? Yeah. So I do enjoy the final blow between Nancy and Freddy in the remake. I love the line, "You're in my world now, bitch." I actually really like that line. I thought that was really, really fucking clever. I think it gives respect to the bitch term that's been used throughout the Nightmare on Elm Street films. And it kind of showed Nancy being like, "Oh yeah, you're fucking here now. How are you gonna fucking take this?" Right?
Right.
I thought it was smart that Quinn, we saw him steal that medicine or whatever it was, the adrenaline.
Oh yeah.
And then he stabs her with it and brings her back. I when I first saw this, I remember thinking, "Holy fuck, is she gonna get killed? Like, is like he gonna stab her before Quinn gets a chance to wake her up?" Like,
right.
And I also do like where, in 1984, she turns her back on evil and evil disappears, right? Like she no longer gives it power. And they kind of danced with that with the 2010, but they didn't go all the way.
Yeah,
because
in the original, that was
always
more...
go all the way.
Oh yeah, all the way.
The opposite of both.
Full shaft.
We go all the way. Those are my thoughts on the ending. I have nothing else to add. What do you think?
Yeah, you did bring up a good point about the whole turning your back on the evil, which works for the older films, and it's like kind of a cool metaphor. But like I think in the modern day that just doesn't work because it is kind of a like cop out ending of like Freddy really didn't get defeated. Someone just turned their back on him.
And we also know that doesn't always work anymore either. We got to remember between 1984 and 2010, a lot of horror films have been made.
Yes.
And the good can triumph all doesn't seem to have the same ring in the 2000s that it, especially late 2000s,
Yeah.
that it would have been 1984. Like, look at Heredity, for example.
Nothing good about the
nothing
end
good
of that.
happens. Midsommar, not really a happy end. Like, I guess kind of quasi happy, but like not overly. Black Coat
Right.
Water. Like, there's not like there's lots of movies where you Saint Maud.
Yeah.
There's lots of movies where you watch and you're like, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
The Strangers.
Yeah, I was like,
like,
there's like that
The list
gray.
goes on and on.
Yeah, there's like that gray spot where like some of these films have landed now, where it's not always going to be happy-go-lucky.
No, we're like Evil Lynns. And I remember there was that other remake of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre that we didn't talk about in here that doesn't have a happy ending. It was like the other one that was made, like that was kind of supposed to be before Sally and her friends.
Yeah, was that
Remember that one?
Was it Leatherface? Like before he became full-on Leatherface?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it was somewhere, like it was that bridge there. So anyway, I do think that this is just a product of the 2010s. They couldn't go back and be like, good conquers all.
Exactly.
People would buy that in 2010, right? So if you had to rank these two in the series,
I was just about to ask you the same thing. That's kind of funny.
Series, where would you put this one?
I would say 1, 2, and 3 are just like 10 out of 10s for me.
Mm-hmm.
I would place this probably, it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, New Nightmare, 6, 5.
So sorry, where did
sorry, I meant 1, 2, 3 remake for.
Okay.
6, New Nightmare 6, 5.
Okay, so definitely original for me. 3, 2, 4. I'm actually kind of caught between New Nightmare and the remake. I'm gonna say New Nightmare and the remake very close to that. And the only reason why I have the remake later is because I just really enjoy the second and the third. And I enjoy Dream Child. I thought Dream Warrior was clever. I enjoyed the flow of that film for the time that it came out. But I think the remake isn't as bad as people make it out to be. Both of us are saying that it's not super high on our list, but it's not.
It's like directly in the middle
better
for
than
me.
Like fucking Freddy's Dead and like Dream Child.
I did just notice something though, because you are the nightmare of Friday Nightmares, and I am the Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And notice how I am higher on the remake of Nightmare than you are where I would place it, and you were higher on the remake of where you would put the Friday the 13th one than I was.
Sure, and
it's interesting.
I think that has a lot to do with us liking the sequels.
Yes.
That I really like 2 and 3. And especially now as time goes on, I have even more respect for 2.
Yep.
For multiple reasons of why. Some social political stuff too. And I like 4. I always have. And I just think New Nightmare was a really cool concept at the time. Yep. I think that, and that was a whole different Freddy. I don't know why people aren't fucking tripping on that. That even though it was Robert Englund, it was a completely fucking different Freddy.
I was gonna say it wasn't even Freddy at that point. It was just a demon that had no name.
Right.
It didn't even have a name yet.
Yeah, he was just there.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe because Robert Englund was in it as himself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, it's okay because
that's exactly. Well, it's that, and because Robert Englund is dressed up as Freddy again, so people can't. If it was someone else playing the demon that's pretending to be Freddy, people would add a fit.
Oh, probably, right? And I just think we need to understand that it is okay for things to be remade, and to look at a film and go, okay, am I hating this because it's a remake? Or are my critiques reflective of the film quality? And I really don't think as a readaptation of Nightmare on Elm Street, it was horrible. I think it could have been improved. And honestly, if they do a remake, I really don't want Robert Englund in it. I think he's 72 years old. And I think the man is a legend. I watch a lot of stuff that he's in, not just this. Like, I've seen him in other films too. I'm a big fan of him. But you know what? Like, it comes down to also what's in the best interest for him at 72 years old. Like, I think people need to also think about that as well. And eventually he won't be here. And if we want, this legend to move on or other generations to maybe enjoy this film, perhaps a remake is where it's at.
Yeah.
Even if it's not for you, it may be for other people.
Right. And one thing I will say that this got brought up, I think, in one of our podcast chats. I think it might have been the Fresh Cuts chat a while ago, but there was rumors of like a prequel to like how Freddy became Freddy type deal.
Oh, so like a story of him leading up to it?
Yeah, and people were like, "Yeah, but Robert Englund's way too old, so they have to find somebody else." And someone brought up the fact, not if it was animated. If it was animated, he could play the voice. I'm like, see, now that's where if they did an animated movie with Nightmare on Elm Street, that's where you bring Robert Englund back because
Yeah,
he doesn't
I
have to do a
agree.
lot of work. He can just do voice acting.
Yeah.
But if it's a live action movie again, no, we can't like. He's too high up there in age, and there's a lot of like, yes, a lot of people things could be done with stunts, but I have to say, I watched the episode of The Goldbergs where Robert Englund reprised his role as Freddy Krueger, and a lot of people were so excited about it. And I watched it and went, even in the makeup, I was just going, "Wow, he looks old." Even in the makeup, I could tell he looked old, and and he was literally he didn't have to do anything. He just stood there, talked to Adam Goldberg's mother, and then that was the end of it. It was like a 2-minute clip. But it's like, yeah, just because he did that doesn't mean that he can come back and do a full movie again.
And here's the great thing. You can watch him in his glory in all of the Nightmare on Elm Street films.
Yeah.
In Freddy versus Jason. And you can watch Freddy Nightmare series if you really want to on YouTube.
Yep, and that's the thing right there too. Bringing up Freddy versus Jason, like there you go. If you want to see a more modern version of Freddy, like with Robert Englund, there you have it. It came out in early 2000s.
Right. So I think that anyway, that's our take. Like that was a little soapboxy, but I have no regrets.
No.
And I want to thank Kill the Cast for episode 64 that they did at the Horror Coliseum. For I think being one of the first podcasts at that time, and I know Exploding Heads, I want to acknowledge them as well because they've had positives of things to say about both remakes, both the Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street, for actually speaking out and giving it fair reviews and not just saying that they hate it because of, in my opinion, superficial reasons of 1 star not being in it. Like actually analyzing the film, giving it its props where it deserves props, and giving it its criticisms where it deserves criticisms. And I think that has to say a lot about somebody when they can review a film like that. So props to both of those podcasts, and that kind of led to our discussion here. Motivated me anyway.
Yeah, same here, because I've listened to like a lot of podcasts that completely trashed the remake for the reasons that we were talking, like and not just critical, but like just like, oh, it's not Freddy, blah blah blah. But I've also listened to a lot of podcasts that broke it down as a movie and not a remake, and looked at it in a different aspect, and that's what I appreciate.
Absolutely, right? So let's get on to our next one, which is a very, very clear adaptation of change.
Yeah, this one, oh boy, I'm gonna have some fun things to talk about this one. So the next movie we're talking about is Child's Play, which was released on November 9th, 1988. The synopsis is Karen buys her son Andy a sought-after doll for his birthday, and Andy names it Chucky. Things take a turn for the worse when Andy discovers that Chucky is possessed by the spirit of a serial killer. Then the remake of Child's Play was released June 20th, 2019. Karen buys a high-tech doll called Chucky for her son, Andy, on his birthday. However, horrific events follow as the doll reveals its ominous tendencies. All right, so right off the bat, once again, this is like my first impressions type thing. When I think it was MGM or Orion, I forget who was going to do in the remake, announced they were doing a Child's Play remake, I'm going, okay, see what they come up with.
Then this is back when you hated remakes. You're a new man now, Scott.
Well, no, this was only last year, or 2 years ago now, and I didn't even hate remakes then. I was just kind of like, I was always just like, okay, let's just see what they come up with.
Okay, coolio.
Then they revealed the doll, and I'm going, oh, that looks really cheap looking, and I'm not okay. I'll watch it, but I'm not having high hopes with the looks of this doll. And then after that, things changed when they announced that the person that would be doing the voice is Mark Hamill. And I'm going, okay, now you got my attention, because Mark Hamill is an incredible voice actor.
Oh, man, he's great as a voice actor.
And I was like, okay, this is all right. Let's see what you got, movie. And when I watched it, I was completely taken aback because I went in expecting, okay, they're just I don't know what they're gonna do with this, but it's like I liked the idea, but I watched it and I was just like, holy shit, this is a really cool adaptation of this movie. Like this is one of those where they took a film from the 80s and completely modernized it.
Oh yeah, they totally made it for a modern day audience. Now let's look at the time lapse here. We're looking at 30 years.
Holy crap, yeah, we are.
Right? So, 30 years is a very, very long time. And a lot of things have changed, and I'm glad they modernized it. And I was surprised. So I went into this, I was going to say dry, but that sounds really...
You don't want to go in dry. It's not comfortable.
Okay? I went in blind. that I didn't watch a trailer. I had no idea what storyline they were going to use. And that wasn't like I was like, oh, I'm going to go in and not watch the trailer. I just didn't watch the trailer.
Yeah.
And I think that the storyline for 2019 made a hell of a lot more sense than some dude, doing voodoo to put himself in a doll. Now, I dig that storyline in 1988. Yet again, I watched these two back to back, and both are exceptionally well done films.
Yes.
Like, awesome films.
Yeah. Because like the one thing I will say this here, Child's Play, the franchise, is right up there with Friday the 13th for me. I love every movie that is released from this series. Like,
I cannot say the same.
Really?
No. I think this was a series that peaked with 1 and 2.
Okay.
And then got too silly.
I was just gonna ask you though, did you watch what was it, Chucky, the one after Seed of Chucky?
Cult of Chucky?
There's one right before that.
I've seen that.
Curse of Chucky. Curse of Chucky,
I think I've seen that one, no.
Yeah, that one goes back to 1 and 2 style roots.
I'll try it. And I don't get me wrong, like I'm not shitting on the series. It's just not as high for me as it is for you.
Yeah, because I think the low point for me was still a 5 out of 10, and then like everything else is above that for me.
Yeah, that'd be generous for me for something.
But I will say Chucky is one of those that icons from the 80s that absolutely fucking terrified me, because I've always had a fear of my toys coming to life and killing me. So a killer doll, especially as evil and sadistic as the original Chucky was, completely haunted me. However, I got to take it with the remake, and I am with you 100%. Like, this remake or readaptation makes more sense storyline-wise. Like, a serial killer that puts his spirit into a doll with voodoo. Okay, that is totally
well.
easy.
And here's the thing: the storyline for 2019 wouldn't have made sense. Like 30 years of technology had developed to make the 2019 storyline make sense. And I have nothing but respect for that.
Yep, I was going to say, because, bringing the fact that this doll is pretty much like a Google Home or an Amazon Alexa, and you can just control everything that we use now with technology is fucking brilliant. And the fact that it was just some pissed off employee that just said fuck it and hacked the computers to like take away its learning capabilities, like it makes so much sense, like the way it plays out. And the one thing that I love about the remake is the way that Chucky is, you're sympathetic for this poor machine, because all it's trying to do is be Andy's friend, and it's watching and learning from Andy, but it's taking things too far because he doesn't know the boundaries.
Well, it takes it literally, right? And it doesn't understand. And I think it also speaks to machines not understanding sarcasm or jokes. Like, how many people joke around with their Alexis and say stupid things, and the Alexis responds with, I do not understand that. Or do you ask? Because it's literal. It doesn't understand sarcasm like humans do.
Yeah.
And I think that's really what this movie plays on. Really well, actually.
Yeah, yep. Like, and I think everyone in this is extremely likable. Like, Karen, his Andy's mother, like being played by Audrey Plaza.
Audrey Plaza's great.
Oh, she did a phenomenal job.
And she brings a modern take to the single mom.
Yes.
Karen in the 80s one is very wholesome. Her son wakes her up with like this ridiculous breakfast that he made.
It's adorable, but
it's Alex Vincent that plays Andy, isn't it?
Yep, in the original. Yep,
in the original. And Andy is just the sweetest little boy. Like,
oh, he is.
Oh my goodness! And for a child actor, I don't know how much acting he had to do, because he just came across as a really sweet kid. He really nailed it. He really nailed it. And Chris Sarandon as the cop who shoots Charles Lee, what's his last name?
Charles Lee Ray. And
then somehow gets reconnected with all this. Like, first of all, we all know Chris Sarandon's my boyfriend. So
he's a handsome fucker.
I'm like, oh, hi Chris. Hi, Chris, 30 years ago, when I was like, I don't know, 5 when this came out. But, I think that his delivery with the woman that plays Karen is excellent. Like, her relationship with her son, it was a very wholesome 80s film.
Yes. Like, well, wholesome until you throw Chucky into the mix.
Yeah, but wholesome when I mean like the relationship. Yeah. Like, she's working at this department store. Her girlfriend offers to watch, Andy, which is where the first kill comes in. Andy's so innocent when he says like, Chucky said whatever the aunt was a real bitch, right? And got
Yeah.
what was coming to her. Like, it's just how he delivers those lines, and then her reaction, and then her realizing that batteries were never in the doll in the first place, and she goes to throw it in the fire pit. And her panicking, like running around town and almost getting sexually assaulted by those homeless guys, and Chris Sarandon shows up and saves the day, and it's, and the final showdowns in the apartment, like it's really well done. Like, it's a different full final showdown. And then you have Audrey, I'm gonna say her last name, sorry, Audrey Plaza, as a much more like edgy single mom, right? She even makes a comment of like, yeah, I have a kid, I had him with 16, I had a great sweet 16, can I get that doll? Hey, didn't you bang that chick in the stock room? How is your wife after all? Like, she's just very edgy and doesn't put up with shit. And even the customer return area.
Or how I like to put it, she's very Audrey Plaza, because that is like her, just like that type of, that's like her in real life, and I
like,
love
it's a modern day single mom that's like, I'm not gonna fucking put up with shit. Like, I know I gotta take care of my son, and I'm doing what I have to do here, but don't be a dick to me. And even though she's kind of dating that guy who's kind of a dick, but not fully a dick, and then you find out he's married or whatever.
Yeah, I was gonna say, he's a full dick.
There were times where I was like, when they were just making out in the kitchen and shit, I was like, well, whatever. But then when he yells at Andy and loses his mind on him, I was like, what the fuck? Like, and so I thought that it was, I thought both portrayals for times were really good. Like, they both represented the time and culture and the way people behave, and that they behave differently.
Yeah, and the one thing I want to say, like, this is kind of a good comparison because of the I'm gonna go to the comparison of just Chucky himself.
Yeah.
Chucky from the 80s is a full-grown psychotic adult in a doll body.
Yes.
Where the Chucky portrayed in the readaptation has basically the mentality of a 5-year-old child, not understanding, like taking everything literally, like you were saying. Like, I like that there's like that just complete takeaway from these, and the fact that Chucky is only doing this to be friends with Andy in this one, where in the original Chucky's doing it because he wants Andy's body, and it's like a completely different. Like, these two stories could not be any more different. Like, it's crazy. Like, and I love that it's all technology based, especially when you get to that final showdown, like at the final act with them revealing the new dolls coming out, and then Chucky just hijacks all of them and just turns them against everybody. It is such a bloodbath scene, like, of carnage.
Yeah, and it goes dark. Like, it goes dark to where it needs to go to. And I think that's something that I really appreciated about this film, is that it didn't, it kind of gave impression like it was a kid-friendly horror film. I think speaking of the lovely YouTube channel show that happened on the Legion Podcast Network today, that if people would like to go, they can subscribe to Legion Podcast and watch that show. But it's a great gateway horror film. It's dark, it is bloody, people do die. But I find that, the scenes where people do die at first, you're kind of like, well, they deserve to die. So, for example, the mom's boyfriend, who actually has a family, who's a real big dick, Chucky kills. And at one point, Andy had showed him to some other kids. He had kind of been like a bridge to help Andy make friends. And the one of the children was trying to get him to stab something and say, this is for Tupac. Yeah. And later on, when he stabs the mom's boyfriend, he says, this is for Tupac. And it's really funny. I remember seeing theaters and laughing. I'm like, oh, that's really good. Like, that's clever. Like, it's like, it's a good little like insert of a joke, and you kind of hate this dude anyway. And then his head is severed, and Chucky leaves it for Andy like a gift. Yeah. And then, Andy has this really cute interaction with the detective Mike's mom that lives down, Doreen, and gives it to Doreen, and oh my goodness, and he goes over there for dinner. And like, even the side characters of Doreen and Mike.
Yeah, they were they were just so lovable. Like, you didn't want anything bad to happen to them. And then when unfortunately Doreen ends up dying because Chucky takes over the fucking Uber, basically.
Which was great. Like, talk about a tie into, like, you didn't want her to die. I remember being like, well, maybe he's just gonna hurt her real bad and she's gonna end up in the hospital. Like, maybe.
Yeah, like that. It was a heartbreaking scene to see.
It was really hard, and then you see Mike get super angry, and kind of like Chris Sarandon's character in the other one was really convinced that Andy had something to do with it. Same with Mike in this one. Yeah. That there's, all these events were happening, and it had to do with Andy, not with Chucky, but Chucky was setting up all of them like he did in the first one. I just think these two movies did such a good job being a true adaptation, and modern adaptation with some solid actors in it. Like you have Audrey Plaza, you have Mark Hamill. I know the other people aren't big names, but they were great.
Yeah.
Like they did a good job of fucking, delivering the lines that they had to deliver and making you care about them. Even the two other kids.
Yeah.
They were likable.
Yeah, like it was just all around, like every character in this was likable, and it's just like in the original, like they didn't have a lot of other side characters besides Chris Sarandon, Karen, and the detective that worked with Chris Sarandon, like as the side character.
And then, well, I guess you could look at her girlfriend,
her friend,
dies
yeah.
at the beginning, right? Who she's that very much like smart talking, what's her name, Maggie, that smart talking woman from the 80s that doesn't put up with any shit.
Yeah, she reminded me of a 80s version of Audrey Plaza.
Yeah, like that's who she was, right? And she was endearing. Everybody was endearing in both of these films, and you feel bad for Andy in both of these films. Like they do a great job of building up Andy's character, where you're like, this kid is just in a situation where no one believes him, and he's trying to make the best of this shitty play. And holy fuck. And in both stages, like in both movies, he has to be pretty brave. As like a 4-year-old little boy trying to get away from Chucky, trying to get away from the doctors, trying to put him under to put him asleep so Chucky could get him. And then also as a 13-year-old boy or however old he is in the remake.
Going to save his mom.
Going to save his mom, and the standoff, and like, and even the tie-in from the lines of let's cut you open and see what you're working with.
Yes.
Right? Like it's man, like I think this is why people don't bitch on this remake. I think people don't bitch on this remake because it was done so well, and the characters were likable, the script was good, the pacing was good, it moves quickly, and it kept with the original flavor while making it relevant for today's audience.
Yep, because I think pretty much what stopped the bitching, because people were like not happy about this remake when it first got announced, because just like Freddy Krueger or Robert Englund being Freddy Krueger, like you instantly attach him to Freddy, where with Chucky you instantly attach Brad Dourif, like that is who is Chucky, because Brad Dourif's voice is so unique, and like I mean obviously he's doing a voiceover of a doll.
Mm-hmm.
But people are just like, there's no one that can match Brad Dourif with like the ferocity of Chucky. But then as soon as Mark Hamill got announced, everyone was just going, well, shit, let's put our foot in our mouth now, because okay, you just proved us wrong. There is a voice actor out there that could probably do this. And yeah, sure as shit, he went a different route with it. He wasn't like nearly as psychotic, but he brought a completely different style that fit perfectly with this movie.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with you. So if we had to rank the Child's Play films, because I think we've said all we need to say, which is basically these two films are excellent in their own right. Like they're both really fucking solid films. What are you going with?
You go first, because this one's going to take me a second to think.
So as much as I love the original, and I want to make this very clear, I love the original. I think it's great. I think Alex Vincent is adorable. My boyfriend Chris Sarandon's in it. If I could choose which one I would want to show people, and if I was like, for example, my friend's kid started to like horror at a younger age, it would be this movie. I could rewatch this movie again, and if it was on TV, I would stay and watch it because I like it so much. I'm going to give the remake over the original for me.
Wow.
Not by much. I want to make something clear here. Not by much. I still love the original. Like it's pretty tier on tier. But if I talk about what I would rather watch again, it's the remake. I just think the remake is so modern and so smart with how they played with the technology. And I think the characters are just so affable. Even the side ones, and pulled on my emotions, and I thought it was funny when it needed to be funny and serious when it needed to be serious. It's just such a solid film. I can't acknowledge it any other way by saying that it's my number one go-to. And then the original, right? Like right there.
That's wow. That is impressive. Okay. Yeah. All right. So I had to take some deliberations because, like I said, like I love this franchise. Like there is a couple, but it was hard to put them in order. But I'm gonna go. For me, it's going to be 1, 2. I'm tied here with Remake or Curse, but it's either number 3 or 4 in the franchise for me, and everything else after. Because I do love 1 and 2 because they are like movies that scared the fuck out of me when I was a kid, and still have images in those movies that scare me to this day, or not scare me, but give me like the chills.
See, I think the remake and the original are football fields better than every other movie in this series.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting because I think part 2 just has some images that left me haunted for life that I just can't ever get rid of.
Absolutely.
But like I would say like the remake for me personally wasn't scary. It was just more a very enjoyable horror film. Like it had some good gory moments, but it didn't.
You weren't anxious about Doreen?
Doreen, yes. That was the one scene I would say I was anxious about.
Yeah.
Like but like I think there was like just
you weren't scared for the cat?
I was more upset, not scared for the cat. I was more just like, oh, what the fuck? And maybe that's why I don't like it or that's why I like the originals better, because they didn't kill a cat.
Yeah, you don't like kitty horror.
No, stupid. But yeah, it's like I said, it's one of those ones where it's like it keeps going up the more I think about it and stuff. But yeah, I think I like 1 and 2 better. But it's still, that's high praise because I love the franchise, and having it placed that highly is saying something.
Awesome.
All right, so the final movie on our franchise remakes. This one, I'm going to give a huge disclaimer right up front. Spoilers will be said in this one. This is a very new film, so heads up.
We spoil all our movies.
Yes.
In this section. So this is going to happen too.
Yep, this is going to happen too. We just cannot do it without it. But the one that we are talking about is the Wrong Turn franchise. So we'll start with the original Wrong Turn, which was originally released May 30th, 2003. Chris and a group of 5 friends, that shouldn't even be friends, just 5 people, are left stranded deep in the middle of the woods after their cars collide. As they venture deeper into the woods, they face an uncertain and blood-curdling fate.
Dun, dun, dun.
And then the Wrong Turn remake, released January 26th, 2021. Despite warnings to stick to the Appalachian Trail, hikers stray off course and cross into land inhabited by a hidden community of mountain dwellers who use deadly means to protect their way of life. Suddenly under siege, the friends seem headed to the point of no return, unless one man can reach them in time. Wow. Okay. So out of all the remakes on this list comparing to the original, this one
is definitely the most almost the same plot.
Yeah. Oh, so similar. Like
it's so similar that if you were watching them, you would be like, "Oh my god, which one is this?"
Yeah, because this one, all joking aside, this one completely just takes an idea of the franchise and basically just uses the scenario or the scenery.
Yep.
Nothing else.
Yeah.
There is no mutant hillbillies in this at all.
No, none. Well, you could consider them hillbillies, but they're not mutants.
Yeah, they're not incest mutants.
No, not incest
or
mutants.
Cannibals. Well,
not that we know of. None of them seem to be into incest, but we don't judge here on Friday Nightmares.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, sex is sex. We approve of banging. Just it's got to be consensual.
Consensual is what we care about here on Friday Nightmares. Consent. Anyway, back to the movie.
All right, so I'm trying to think of where to even begin with this. Like, this one pretty much the only similarity is that it takes place in the deep woods of West Virginia.
West Virginia.
Take me home. But other than that, yeah, this is a completely different movie. Like this, I don't even know
what they called this Wrong Turn. To be honest with you.
Like, besides the fact that they use the title Wrong Turn as a line going, we must have taken a wrong turn or something like that at one point in the movie. That was it.
And here's the thing, you can call something the same. So like, for example, I watched a movie called Numb the other day, which was a Canadian film. And I went to put it in my letterbox, and there was like 16 different movies called Numb, right?
Well, I mean, and just like last year with what was it, Alive,
and there's been a second movie called Midsommar. So people actually don't know about the original Midsommar, which has nothing to do with the Ari Aster film. It has to do with like a bunch of kids that went to a lodge in Sweden during Midsommar, and it's a slasher film. I watched it last year, so I know it exists. So like, you can use the same name. It's just I don't get why they made this an indication that it was a remake.
Yeah, because they even said
I don't understand.
Yeah, they said a readaptation of the Wrong Turn franchise. Like it's
like a real adaptation, like not even similar to the plot.
Yeah, it's like someone didn't watch. It's almost like someone didn't watch the originals and just said, "Oh, people in the woods getting killed by people that live in the mountains. Okay, we can do this." They didn't but they didn't realize the cannibalistic mutant hillbilly part of it or something. But
no, the one thing I do prefer about the 2001 version is the 2003 is so 2003.
Yeah.
Like, it's all like, oh my God, look at me with my halter top and my boyfriend. Oh my God, our cars got hit. Oh my God, what happened? Oh my God, he's trying to be a doctor. Oh my God, I hope I end up with him. Like,
oh, and don't forget the flip phones.
And the flip phones. Oh my goodness.
But yeah, the one thing I will say, like, out of all of these remakes to originals, I think this is the one out of all of them that I will say I prefer over the original.
Snap, shots fired, shots fired. But like, here's the thing, Scotty. I respect that. Don't get me wrong. I think it's actually a better made movie. The 2001 movie. Now, we're not talking about the Wrong Turn franchise here, okay? If we look at this Wrong Turn movie as just a movie in 2001, it's a better made film. It's better acted. The script's better. It has more of a moral message behind it. It's a better movie. Once
again, more realistic. Like, I'll notice with the remakes, they go a more realistic approach with a lot of these.
Yes, but I don't understand. Like, to me, they're not even comparable.
No.
Like, we did it because we just thought it was so ridiculous that, first of all, this remake was made the soonest amount of time. 18 years have passed since the original was made. And I just think, like, I will never understand why they called this a readaptation. I think they hurt themselves by doing that. They may have got more people to watch it, but they're going to get more people hating on it.
Yeah, but surprisingly, all I've heard so far is good stuff.
Really?
Besides like one person.
Did Tim Davis like this movie? I thought he didn't.
No, he's the one.
Okay, I was gonna be like, that's the only person that matters to me.
Oh,
what Tim Davis thinks.
And see, I don't care what he thinks because him and I are supposed to have the exact opposite opinions.
And honest, he's the only podcaster I know that's talked about it yet. That's watched it. I know Fresh Cuts is going to talk about it.
Nudie just watched it and loved it. He said he posted on Facebook. Yep.
Okay, so Neil liked it too. That's cool.
Yep, and Willis Wheeler.
Oh, nice. Okay, so like. I think the first one is very much a product of 2000s. I feel this takes me back to my early 20s. Actually, I was 20 when this came out. The hot dudes and the hot chicks and, fucking shit slasher happening in the woods. Some fucked up shit happening. A lot of off-screen kills, Mark Nato. I want you to rewatch this movie, Mark Nato. Mark Nato. I'm talking to specifically you. And realize that there's a lot of off-screen kills, Mark Nato. So if we said Mark Nato's enough time, I feel like he's going to approve now. Like, appear in the mirror and tell me how many 2021 films he's watched.
We love you, Mark Nato.
Oh, Mark Nato knows we love him. We're everly grateful for him and his Plex and actually the amount of films that he watches and the knowledge he shares. Yeah. But it's fun. Like, this is a fun fucking throw it on, some, backward cannibals, some good little suspenseful scenes when they break into the hut. He goes back for the main chick at the end. You know who the main survivor is going to be, though, in the first 5 minutes of this film.
Yep. As soon as you see Alicia Dushku, you're like, yep.
She comes around the corner with her white tank top, and she's kind of like the smart one, and you're like, she's going to live.
Well, and she's also got like that, kind of like she gives that air of badass attitude as well.
Yeah, like she's intelligent. Honestly, I feel like this was a movie where the smart ones are like, you saw this in Friday the 13th remake too. You could figure out who the smart girl was, and she was going to last the longest amount of time because she was smart. Not just pretty. So I feel like the Wrong Turn original is like a really like basic film. It's
Well, this is going to go back to when we talked about the one movie that just came, Butcher.
The Butchers, yeah.
It's the whole, we're driving down these back roads and all of a sudden our tire gets exploded we get in an accident. And
how weird is this? We hit a spike on the road and someone else hit us and now we're stuck here.
Yeah, and now we're stuck in the woods and lost and getting killed.
My cell phone's not working either. I know. Let's go for a walk somewhere and try to find stuff. Okay, we'll stay back at the car and not have sex or smoke up and drink or do something that would inebriate us.
Not die. And not die.
And not die.
This is where the one thing I love about the remake or the readaptation, whatever you want to call it. These characters are purposely going to the woods because they are doing the Appalachian Trail hiking, and they only get off course because they hear of a old fort that they want to go investigate.
Even though they've been told, though, like when they checked into the Airbnb, the old woman that ran it was like, "Hey, don't go off the trails."
Yeah,
like the one thing she told them.
Yeah.
And they got there, and it's so like stupid. That part really, I get it. You have to have a horror movie. You got to have people making bad decisions. Let's go off the trails. The one thing the lady said to us was not go off the trails. Let's go off the trails.
Yeah, because that character would have totally been me if the lady did not say that. Because I would have totally went off the trail to find this abandoned fort, just because I love abandoned places.
Because you want to die. That's why.
Yes, but like I would. But if someone warned me, hey, don't go off the trails. Word of advice, I'd be going, I will take your word for it.
I would just show up in my white tank top with my hair perfectly done and be like, I don't think this is a good idea, Scott.
And I'll be like, you're right, Heather. Let's go.
We need to get back to the car.
And then
we would show up to the cabin and you'd be like, we should go in. I'd be like, I don't think that's a good idea, guys. We should go in the cabin. And you'd be like, no, maybe they have a bathroom. I'd be like, I don't think that's a good idea. And then we would go in anyway.
Yeah, and get killed.
No, then some trauma would happen. One of us would get killed, and then we would find all the other cars of all the other people that died. I know this is side and we won't go into it, but the Hills Have Eyes remake was so much better of like cannibal inbred mutants than this movie is.
Oh, it is. The original, better than the original.
Both the original and the remake are better than this. The Hills Have Eyes just had.
No, I'm saying better than this, as in better than the
I just mean the story. I just mean the story in general. They also use mutants, and I feel like they just gave the characters you cared more about the mutants and also about the people that got stuck.
Yes.
You actually bought into either one. This one, they're kind of and it's fine. Yet again, 2003. But I think with the remake, this was also super woke. They had people of color. They had people of different sexual preferences. So it very much reflected 2021, which was nice to see.
Yeah.
And the tree that comes down and fucking fucks them up. I was like, whoa. Okay, maybe we're gonna have some Wrong Turn 3 vibes going on. You're walking through the woods and you hit all these traps, which we do have.
Yeah, because there are some vicious traps that are
right.
But I like the reason that they have these traps. It's to keep people from finding them.
Mm-hmm.
It's not to hey, we're getting them to trap them to eat them. It's no, stay the fuck away from us. We have our own little society. Leave us alone.
Which I thought was okay. So this is my only social. Okay, and I love social justice. All right. I am hashtag social justice. But the scene where they're hiding out, so their one friend has been killed by the tree, pretty graphically.
Yeah.
So the gentleman's partner has been killed. He's obviously quite upset, and they camp overnight for some reason. They can't get back in time, or a storm's coming in, or whatever the situation is. And the one dude gets caught in the trap because he's looking for the girl that went off to pee that never came back, his girlfriend.
Yeah.
So the other three are hiding with weapons. They found this area where all these hiker shit has been kept. So there's similar to the first one, there's a pile of junk that has been
phones
and bats and guns and whatever, right? So they see their buddy being walked on a pole, basically hogtied.
Yeah.
His wrists are tied, his legs are tied, and they run up, and these people carrying the guy are in these costumes. They're wearing an animal head on their head. And they're speaking a foreign language.
Mm-hmm.
And they can't figure out what's going on. They're like, where are you taking our friend? Drop our friend, blah, 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 blah. And they drop the bar anyway. And somehow this guy gets out of his knots on both his legs and his feet and manages to get up and kill one of the other guys while they're distracted. So kills one of the dudes that are carrying
in a very brutal fashion.
Very brutal fashion, right? So later we fast forward and we find out that these guys weren't going to hurt him, the one that they were carrying. They were going to take him somewhere and leave him so he could find his way home or whatever. My understanding was they weren't going to hurt him.
Yeah, and I'm thinking that was a lie. I think they were planning on hurting him.
But then that doesn't tie into the social justice of you prejudged our people like you all do, which was a total tie-in to Western culture, prejudging everyone else's culture, and feeling the need and colonization and all that other shit. That's
that makes
pretty
more
woke.
sense.
That's what I think they were going for. And they take revenge back. And obviously this has happened a couple of times because there's a whole bunch of people in their jail that have probably done the same. Because if I'm wandering through the woods, you, me, and I don't know, a bunch of our more podcasting friends are wandering through the woods, and I get separated from you, and I see you hogtied to a fucking branch being carried, I'm probably not going to be like, oh man, they're just helping Scott. I'm like, oh my God, Scott's going to be BBQ, right? That's probably going to be my thought, and I'm going to be concerned, right? So I felt like this, and the whole colonization things, if you didn't understand our ways, and we did nothing to you, what did we do to harm you, but yet you harmed us? I understand that whole like very woke, very social justice commentary. And usually I buy into that, but I just didn't like it here.
Really?
Yeah. And I don't think it was bad. I think it was done well. But to me, I felt like it was too spoon fed. It was like, when you don't understand people and you do things, you could hurt somebody and they could get mad. And that, like, I felt like it was like a Sesame Street.
And I think that's kind of why I was hoping, or in my head, I was making it out to be like they were lying that, oh, we're going to let him free.
I don't think that was the case.
That's what I'm saying. I think in my head that's why I wanted to make it that, because that just seems too spoon fed and weird. Like, we weren't gonna hurt him. Really, you weren't.
And maybe they were. Like, I just got the impression, because when they're on quote unquote trial, the big reason why they're found guilty is because and they're right. So you had no real reason to attack, because when they went and confronted those two dudes, they didn't look to defend themselves. Those two dudes were fucking ripped. All right.
Yeah.
Like, they were ripped, and they were obviously carrying weapons of whatever weapons they make there, knives or whatever. They didn't look concerned, and they were outnumbered.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And at the same time, I do not blame the dude that escaped for beating the shit out of the guy and killing him, because, like, I would have probably too if I was, like you were saying, if I was hogtied and I somehow managed to get out of there, I would probably maybe not kill a person, but I'd probably knock him the fuck out so I can get away, because I'd be terrified thinking, well, what are they going to do with me? Why am I hogtied?
I think that's a very Western way of looking at it, right? Because what were they doing of threatening behavior at that moment?
Yeah.
They were having a conversation.
Well, I mean, actually, I think
no one could understand it.
Yeah, because I think leading up to that, like, in my head, it'd be like, well, they did just snare me in a trap and pull me away. Like, that's probably where I would have taken that.
Or he found the trap. They didn't actually put him in the trap.
Yeah.
It'd be like if you and I were walking in the woods out in the UP, and I got my foot stuck in a bear trap.
Yeah.
Am I honestly going to think that the hunter was hunting down the heather, or was hunting for a bear?
Right.
Like, well, I think he's mad, but that's not the hunter purposely. Neither was this trap purposely on him.
Right. Like, I understand that. Like I'm just saying, I'm like, I can get into the character's head and see, like, him, because he was already kind of a dick anyways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, I'm not arguing with you. I'm just kind of giving it from the perspective that I think the movie was trying to.
Yeah, I say, like, because you make more sense with what you're explaining.
Right. Like,
I think that's kind of why I want to go that route, because I'm like, I just don't like how it fit that way. I wish it would have.
Absolutely. I think it would have been nice if it was, but I really felt like this movie was about, at least that scene was about, misunderstanding of cultures.
Yeah.
And I just think that that had nothing to do with the original Wrong Turn movie. No one misunderstood the cannibals. They were trying to eat you. That wasn't like a debate. Like, oh, maybe they just want a friend. No, they wanted to eat your ass. That's what they wanted to do. I do appreciate how intelligent the lead is in the remake.
Yeah, I think that's okay.
For her to think of how to survive and offering her body to the head who needs a husband, who needs a wife. Offering her boyfriend services for sustainable
just to be part of the community, basically.
Well, sustainable environment. He had trainings on how to make things more sustainable.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Right. So because these individuals, they were almost like the village kind of concept, right? They had lived in normal, quote unquote, society, and they had chosen to relocate here.
Yes.
So there was obviously a level of education among some of them where they understood what he was capable of offering, right? They understood the concept of sustainability and all that other stuff. So when she communicated that to them, they got it. This was like actually a really deep movie for a Wrong Turn movie. It really was. Like,
it was.
And I feel like that's the problem that they had walking into this, is that this was a little bit social justice-y, a little bit like current day environment. Are we really doing the right thing with our environment? With some kills thrown in there. It was almost like a on roids version of The Village. like they took the concept of The Village and they were like, but let's make them really angry.
Pretty much.
And let's make them have this tribunal, and they kill people and they bust out their eyes and they do all this other shit, Like,
yeah, because didn't they take the one guy that lost his partner, and didn't they they ended up taking out one of his eyes, and then when they find him later, like, he's got both missing.
Yeah, both.
Yeah,
and like with everyone else, because the idea is that you will see no evil and speak no evil moving forward, and they just keep all those people in that fucking cave. And she goes and she kills him.
Yeah, because you could even see like the skull socket where his eyes were. Like, they literally dug it all out, which is cool.
Now, here's the thing. I don't know how you didn't die of infection or all those other people didn't die of
Yes.
infection, but that's fine. We can move to movie magic there on how that was
I'll say pretty
on.
much only survival horror films focus on that part,
Right.
it seems like.
You know?
Not like real horror films.
Not real horror where you're like, oh man, maybe like they'd have an infection and die and get blood poisoning. The acting was out of this world, way better than the original Wrong Turn.
Yeah.
But the original Wrong Turn was never meant to be a well-acted film.
No, the original was the original Wrong Turn was just supposed to be fun horror film about the mutant hillbillies in the woods.
Yeah, like it was supposed to be an original enough idea.
Mm-hmm.
You know, original enough, I say, because we already had The Hills Have Eyes come
Right,
out.
they basically took The Hills Have Eyes and put it in the woods.
Yeah, and they changed it a little bit, right? So, other point I wanted to make, I thought the father, you know, searching for the kid was fine. Like he's trying to go back and find his daughter, and he eventually does. And like this was all really about the society that wanted to be left alone and believed that everyone could contribute. It was almost like communism is what they were trying. Like there was just so much political and social meanings behind this movie that I did not. I don't know why they called it Wrong Turn. Like this was a very socially, politically heavy film, along with some really like a cool story, like almost like a fantasy story that I don't get why they called it Wrong Turn. Like
I know why they called it Wrong Turn, Heather, for the one tiny little tie-in at the very end, which is there after the father, because the father does go out and like search for his daughter, which everyone keeps bringing up. Okay, why are you like still looking if the cops couldn't find it? Well, would you stop looking if you knew your daughter was out there? Which makes good sense.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And so like he's like, I'm going to try everything in my power to see if I can find her. Oh yeah, hell yeah, dude. I would be doing the same. And like I love it because he runs into some of the townsfolk who at the beginning of the movie you're thinking, okay, these are the fuckers that are gonna hurt these kids because they were all cocky towards them, and like the main character even like diagnosed him with like liver failure because his skin was getting yellow, like sclerosis of the liver. Yeah. And but then that all ties back in because he actually said, you know, like when he finds her later, he says, your daughter told me pretty much that, you know, I had sclerosis of the liver. I went to the doctor and she was right. So I want to help you. And like he wanted to help them as well. And I thought that was really cool little time to bring them back in where they're kind of leading you in the beginning to think they might be part of this whole thing.
Well, and I think that also shows like, okay, we can have these rich kids that show up and bring value. They're not all shitty. Like this movie is so social and political. Like it is. It really, and it's fun. No, like it's a fun little adventure story. Like I find it more of an adventure horror film. And the ending is great. The ending is.
I was just about to say, but I wanted to bring up that ending was like, because like after she's free and everything like that, they go back to the house or she goes back to her house and she's back with her family, and well, the head of that cult with the little girl that is part of that cult is sitting at the dinner table with them, saying they're just moving in next door, and pretty much he came back because she was pregnant and was going to take his wife with him.
Yep, he wanted to take the baby, right? He wanted her because he wanted the baby. It really like and there's the throwaway line about, your brothers want to watch another inbred cannibal movie again.
Yes, and that was where I was going to say, that's why they called it Wrong Turn, so they could use that line.
And the Imagine scene that happens really deked me out. So I won't go into great detail of it because I want people to be somewhat surprised. But there's a deke out that I was like, oh.
Yeah, because I was like, oh, shit. And then I'm like, oh, shit.
Oh, shit. But I don't know. I feel... Yet again, I get why they called it Wrong Turn. As much as I don't get why they called it Wrong Turn, I do. You know, it gets people interested. Money. I just think it's a shame because I think if you walk into this film expecting cannibals, you're going to be really disappointed. Yeah. If you're expecting a film like the first one, and I don't even know if these guys were cannibals and ate people. Like maybe they did, but that was never a focus of the film.
Yeah, they never brought it up.
Right. So where do you rank it, Scott? Where do you rank these two?
The Wrong Turn series. I like this one better than anything the Wrong Turn franchise has done. And I can say the franchise because that was one of my things before we recorded was to watch the entire franchise of Wrong Turn because I'd never seen them besides 2 and 3. So I watched 4, 5, and 6 and all that. Those are all fun movies. The entire franchise is fun. But are they good movies? Kind of.
They're entertaining for what they are.
Yeah, they're exactly what I want them to be. This is a much more serious social political look into horror, and I like it for that. It's hard to say I'll rank this before I put this ahead of the others because it's not even, it shouldn't even be part of the franchise, like we were saying. It's completely different. But if I'm going to go by quality and entertainment, I'm going to have to put the remake ahead of everything else.
Wow, that's some big words. Tim Davis and you just officially broke up. Sorry for your loss.
No, we have finally set the world right again because now we have finally disagreed on something.
So I'm going to say something that maybe Scott will go on and go back and change what he has to say. I don't think you can compare these two movies together, and I'm not going to. I think they're separate. I like Wrong Turn, the original, in its own accord. I've only seen 2 and 3. After that, I like 3 more than I like 2. Mm-hmm. And I think that this Wrong Turn movie was fine. I enjoyed it. If I was honest of which one I probably enjoy watching more, it's probably the first one. Simply because I enjoy that early 2000s nostalgia feel to it. And I think that this was a social political movie to me that just spoon-fed it. Like if spoon-fed concepts like everyone here contributes and we all take from the same system, communism. You acted without knowing who we were, racism. And like culture colonization,
cultural appropriation.
Right. You came in and you tried to destroy what we had without knowing, we're being colonized and you're colonizers. Like there was just so many, and it wasn't directly said, but it was the themes of things that were said. And for me, I just am not feeling that kind of film right now, as much as I am a supporter, but very much believe in educating people about that kind of stuff. It just wasn't the tone I was looking for, but an exceptionally well-made movie, very well acted. Some awesome kills are in it, real and not real. Scott's playing with his beard because he's getting bored.
I'm not getting bored. I'm actually listening because I actually like this.
And, I think both movies are separate in its own accord, and I don't think you can compare them. So just know, watching the Wrong Turn remake, it's nothing like the first one.
No, go in watching the Wrong Turn remake as just its
a movie.
It's just like another horror film that's come out that's got a different story because it's not a remake at all.
It's a very woke 2021 movie, so prepare for some wokeness. Yeah. But that's okay.
And like you can tell from what both Heather and I have said, like, we like these for different reasons, like the comparisons, but at the same time, we both did say, like, we can't really compare them to each other because there's nothing comparable. Like, just which one do you like better than the other? Is the only thing we can do, really.
Yeah.
This'll keep it quiet. Oh, hi there. I didn't see you. You caught me cutting a new show. I'm Bo Ransdell, and I'm one of the many creators you can find on Legion Podcasts. I said quiet! My fellow podcasters and I work hard to bring you the best in horror podcasting, but that comes at a cost.
Wouldst thou like to live deliciously?
Not that, but also yes. No, what I'm getting at is that there are server costs for good microphones and software for editing, all the things that make our shows, fun to listen to. And you can help. If you're enjoying the shows on legionpodcasts.com or in the Legion Network available on iTunes and Stitcher, just about anywhere you can download a podcast, really, you can help us out and get a little something for your trouble at patreon.com/Legion Podcasts. For just $2 a month, you get a pair of movie commentaries exclusive to Patreon, and for $5, you can also join us for a monthly screening of a movie. All of that available on patreon.com/Legion Podcasts. We appreciate it, and thank you for listening. Now, back to the cutting room.
So finally, our Out of the Dark segment is what are our thoughts on remakes that completely change the story, aka Wrong Turn, which is really where this question came from. I don't care if a remake completely changes the story. We will be covering another film, which I actually think we can do, not in the franchise one that we're going to do next time, Prom Night, because Prom Night 2 and 3 and 4 don't actually follow the sequencing of events from Prom Night 1. They happen in the same universe, but they have nothing to do with the same characters.
That's a good point.
Right? So really 2, 3, and 4. When is Mary Lou in it till?
2 and 3. And then 4 is something completely different.
Yeah, isn't it like a nun, weird ass priest or something like that, right? So it goes off the rails. So I think that we can do Prom Night, the remake from 2010 and the original. They're nothing alike. Scott will see.
Yep.
I don't think he's ever seen the remake.
Nope, never seen the remake, so I'm very curious.
They're not even the same theme. It's like a completely different film, kind of like Wrong Turn. So I feel like when you do this, you really run a risk. I feel like people who call a film similar to a remake but use nothing from the original concept run the risk of getting people to go to the theater to see it and be really happy that it's a complete reimagination of the series and starting from scratch, or they get pissed and they're upset that it wasn't what they thought walking into it.
Yeah, because what that shows me is when someone attaches either as a sequel or a remake, in this matter, the name of a franchise and say, yo, this is a remake, or yo, this is a sequel. What you're telling me is you do not have faith in this movie to stand out on its own, because you need the franchise to lure people in. And that just tells me that the studio doesn't have faith in it. But my thoughts are, it just depends, because it depends on how far you stray. So like when you stray away from a completely like Wrong Turn, you might as well just call it a different movie.
Yeah.
But if you do it along the lines of Child's Play, where you take the concept but go a completely different route with it, I'm all like, yeah, go for it. You're just giving it a modern take with a new story. Like I'm all about that. But yeah, when it's something completely like has nothing to do with the original in any way, shape, or form, and you're calling it a remake, there's no point in it. You should just call it a different movie.
I think it's important to use terms like reimagining.
Yes.
I think when you say reimagining, people set their expectations going back and going into the film. And I think like a prime example here is The Wrong Turn. I don't think this was smart of them to call this a remake. I think that you're hearing a lot of positive things, and I think that's awesome. But I know I talked to Carly, who's from His and Her podcast, and she said to me, I didn't like it because I thought there was going to be cannibals. It's not a bad movie, but that's not what I walked into there expecting.
Right.
And I think that's the problem, is when I guess they could argue that they used a similar concept of getting lost in the woods and finding people.
But that can be any fucking movie at that point.
But it was just so diluted that it really, really didn't make sense. And then we have something like The Nightmare on Elm Street, which really does change. The flow of the movie is very different. I would argue that's a readaptation too.
Yeah.
Because it is, but it's keeping enough of the similar flavors. Freddy Krueger, the Mitt, some of the main characters' names, why he was evil, generally speaking, some classic kills or some classic scenes that were from the first one. Like, I think it's a really hard area to tread. And personally, I think as a filmmaker, you run a real big risk of when you say something is a remake and it's too far off the beaten path, because people tend to be non-forgiving when classics are remade. So for example, if they ever truly remade Hellraiser, you would have to be very careful with that film. Either you're making a true remake that is very similar to the original plot line, or you're doing a readaptation with the concept of Pinhead and the Cenobites, only in a different retelling or a different lore, or whatever the case may be. Because those movies are both, like the first one and the second one particularly, are just very strong.
Yes.
As they go on, they become less strong.
you could say it just a little bit.
But the first one and the direct sequel, they're back to back to each other. You could watch them back to back, and they do build on each other nicely. They're very, very good films. Phantasm, excellent film for when it came out. You could not remake Phantasm scene by scene now.
No.
People would be like, what the fuck is this shit? This makes absolutely no sense. Like, similar to Child's Play, you would need to reimagine the story.
Yeah, because for one, Phantasm is almost like a total acid trip.
It is, and it's fun.
Very bizarre and out there, and I'll say the movie's fantastic, but it's just bizarre and out there, and it would bring in older fans, would not bring in a new audience, I don't think.
Right. Well, and a remake that's more modernized would.
Yes.
Like if we look at the Child's Play, if you took Child's Play 1988 and you showed it to like a a 16, 17, 15, 13, whatever, 12-year-old now, they'd be like, okay, so this guy had voodoo and went into some cheap ass doll. Like they weren't there for the Teddy Ruxpin days of where you put a cassette in your Teddy Ruxpin and it would talk and sing to you, right?
It was the most amazing thing ever.
Right? Like that's not their cultural reference. And I feel like that's what people don't get. They get all uppy when young people don't like their fucking old ass movies, when I'm like, well, dude, that's not their cultural reference. Like,
Yeah, like, did we like our parents' movies like from like the 70s, like 60s and earlier? And I mean,
my mom loves Wizard of Oz. I find that movie fucking boring.
yep.
Like
Me too.
I watched it as a kid and it was fun and fluffy, but to watch it as an adult now, it's like fucking. Now maybe there's someone listening just as like, I love Wizard of Oz. It's my childhood memory, and that's awesome. But there's a reason why these movies are Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. The first one's great, but it's set in a different time. The
Yeah.
remake with Johnny Depp was more modernized, and it was modernized for an audience. And I feel like what people don't get is not everything is made individually for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
Like, because the way I look at it is when you're remaking something, the original has already grabbed that audience. This is coming out for a new audience.
it is, right? I think that's a great way of phrasing it, Scott. You basically summed everything up that I was saying in really long paragraphs in a simple sentence. That's what they're meant to do. And in some cases, they are low-hanging fruit. As we talked about that article earlier, it does have a name attached to it. It already has that standing in cinema. More people might be willing to go out and watch it. So I think we really need to stop shitting on remakes and acting like, it's some kind of, it's untouchable. Like,
Yeah.
I swear to God, when people give me that fucking statement, I just think it's the most immature statement you can make.
Yeah, like the only one I can kind of sort of say, like I wouldn't even say untouchable, but just seem would be pointless is The Exorcist, because it's pretty much.
I disagree with you 100%.
Well, the reason I say that is because I don't think it'll ever have that impact again. Like, just because
Why not?
there's
We
so
make
many
exorcism
exorcism
movies all the time.
That's what I'm saying. There are all these exorcism movies that have already been done, so and they've all. I think we've pretty much just run the gamut of all exorcism films. And I don't think anything new exorcism wise would grab people.
Well, I disagree with you, and that's
Okay.
fine. I don't think anything is untouchable.
I was like, I don't think it's untouchable. I just don't know if I'm just kind of curious on how that would. Yeah, I'm not sure.
And I think that's a movie that still is really good. The documentary, a little boring.
Yeah,
The movie, really
yeah.
good. But if someone said I'm going to remake The Exorcist and make it more intense and make those scenes more intense because we have the capabilities to do that now, and I can make better special effects and better gore, and I can have better this and better that. Fuck, why not?
Yeah, I'll say. I mean, I'm
Right?
not gonna. I will never. You'll never hear me bitch about it. That's for sure. And I would go watch it.
Right. So I think, and the bottom line is, if you don't want to see it, you don't need to go to the movie theater. Scott and I will be doing an episode later on this year of horror that makes us uncomfortable. And there's two films. Well, I guess there's a series of films and a second film that I refuse to watch because it scares me. It makes me uncomfortable. And that is Human Centipede and Tusk. And we'll get into that episode as to why those two films are there in the series. Obviously, when I say Human Centipede, I'm not going and watching the third sequence. Clearly, I have a problem with all of them. And it's not that I would ever criticize someone who likes those movies. Ever.
Yeah.
Like, or if they wanted to remake Human Centipede now and, make it more intense than it already was, fuck, go at her. Like, I don't need to go to the theater and watch it because the concept of certain things in that personally get to me. That's me. That's not other people. And I feel like that's where I get a problem with horror fans, is that they can't go, this is my own personal opinion, I don't really like that. So I'll say I don't like that and give my reasons why, and that's fine. But to be like, it never should have been made is ridiculous. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous. We live in a capitalist society. People make things to make money. And if it made money, great. It doesn't take away from your enjoyment of the original or the value that comes with it.
Exactly. Like, because like there's certain movies that I've just, like you were talking about, ones that make me uncomfortable that I have refused to watch, but we're gonna both do this for the show.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them is Salo, or not Salo, but
Serbian film.
Yes, Serbian film. And yeah, I got a couple others I'm still kind of throwing around the ideas of, but like, yeah, that one for sure is one I don't like the idea of it at all.
Mm-hmm.
And but at the same time, like I'm gonna watch them because you know what, I don't care. Like, people can make movies and like remake movies and all that, and it's like, it's not going to affect anything. I'll go and watch it, and I'm going to watch it with, sure, I might have rose tinted glasses if I'm going to go watch a Gremlins remake, And like, I'll probably in my head go, not sure if I like that better than the original, being the nerdy person I am.
And the best part is, guess what, Scott? You don't have to.
Exactly. But at the same time, I'm not going to judge. I refuse to ever judge a movie before I go and see it. Like, oh, this looks fucking stupid. I'm not going to go see it. It's like, no, I'll watch it. Depending on how excited I am will be when I watch it.
I just think a non-valid argument, if you're really going to critique a film and say that you don't like something, saying it shouldn't have been remade because it's untouchable is not a valid argument.
Yeah.
If you what we did with the Nightmare on Elm Street, if you break it down, you're like, I didn't like this and this is why. I didn't like this is why. This is inconsistent and this is why. Absolutely. Those are valid arguments, and you are allowed to like and dislike whatever you want. But I just think this negativity towards remakes is ridiculous and is so dated. And to think that as much as I love the series, like I love the movie Scream, I watched the TV series. I watched the first season and second season. It was nothing like the original Scream. And
Right.
I watched it and went, hey, I'll watch it for what it is. It was a fun TV series. It's not the best series in the world, but it's fun.
Yeah.
And it's fluffy. And really, to be quite honest, so was Scream. So... And I kind of feel like if you can watch something and go, this is going to be different from what was made before. Let's see what the concept is. I can choose to like it or not. I can make a critique of it that actually highlights things that are valid from there. Like Phil and Craig, for example, when they critique a movie, they're not like, I didn't like it. Like they give valid reasons as to why, and they cite back to the film.
Yep.
Well,
like I look at them as like legitimate film critic connoisseurs. Like they watch
Absolutely.
everything.
You listen to Exploding Heads podcast and you listen to Dave C. and Christian and Brandon go over a film. They give valid reasons why they like or dislike something. Now, it could be personal and it could be something that the other two don't agree with or the other one doesn't agree with or whatever. But there's cited reasons as to why. Same with Kill the Cast. There's certain people, when they do a movie review, they cite reasons as to why they don't enjoy it. And they give reasons that tie back to the film more than like, I don't like remakes. Like that.
Right.
That is not a valid reason. So we kind of went on to a different side topic here about In the Dark. And I really feel like I got soapboxy, but it's my podcast with Scott, so I guess we're allowed to.
And I can't, just so everyone knows, I can't rein her in. I just let her have her fun.
Can't rein her in.
When she gets on her soapbox, I just get more boxes to put underneath her to stand taller.
It's so funny because after I'll complain, like I do this all the time, and then Scott one day will go off on something. It's a couple of episodes he goes on. I mean, say rant. He just states his opinion. Later on, he'll be like, "Do you think that was too much?" And I'm like, "Dude, if that's too much, we got a problem," because that's how I roll. But yeah, I don't know. I think just as a film producer, back to our original point, you just got to be careful with what you call a remake, what you call a readaptation, because you may get lots of people going to see the film, but you may get a whole bunch of people pissed afterwards. But I don't know what's best there: good publicity, bad publicity, or any promotion at all.
Yeah, I'll say it's one of those just kind of just tough things to figure out. Like it's that thin line that you're treading when it comes to a remake that doesn't really have any reason to be a remake, like besides just the name. And it's one of those things, like you said, like people are going to go in expecting one thing and come out disappointed because it's not that. So I think it's just like, if you're going to change it completely, just give it a different name. Yeah,
I think you just run that risk of people just
you're alienating somebody doing that.
Like someone's going to walk in and be like, "Where's the cannibals?"
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's literally them being alienated then at that point.
Right. And I think that's, maybe more people would like the wrong term remake, or I don't know, maybe they really don't like the film, and that's okay too. But maybe they really don't like it. Maybe they would have liked it more if they didn't go in there being like, "Hey, what's the name of the cannibal? The big famous one."
Oh, Three Finger.
Three Finger. They're like, "Where's Three Finger?" Right? Like, that happens, right?
Yeah.
And the Wrong Turn movie, I don't think is a critically acclaimed love film like
it's that whole entire
Nightmare
franchise.
on Elm Street or Friday or the 13th is.
No, I was gonna say, like, out of everything that we put in this franchise, it's definitely the weakest of all the franchises, just as like popularity wise.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those newer ones that got a remake that we wanted to talk about, especially because of how different it was.
Would you say the most three popular ones are Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
I would say probably Child's Play over Texas Chainsaw.
Really?
I think so. I have a hard time. I think those two are on par because I think more people know Chucky than they know Leatherface.
I don't know about that. And
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know. I think we
Yeah,
should
that's-
pull up.
I'm kind of curious about that now, actually. Yeah, because I am kind of curious, like who you would remember more.
Because like I'm trying to sort through in my head, and both have a huge amount of movies. Both have storylines that no longer make sense. You know, both have some comical shit to them.
Yeah.
Like I'm thinking of the Renée Zellweger and
Oh, Matthew McConaughey. The
Yeah.
Next Generation.
yeah, you know, movies that probably never should have happened. But like you know, we didn't even talk about the Leprechaun series.
Oh boy.
Like I don't think they've made a remake of Leprechaun.
No, they kind of sort of did one of those like readaptations that it's like a sequel, like the sequel to the very
Oh.
first movie.
Okay.
Because brings back a couple of the main characters from the first movie, and it's actually done by Steven Kostanski, who did my favorite film this year, which is Psycho Gorman.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and it's actually really good. So like, it's shocking how good that movie was.
Interesting. What's it called?
Leprechaun Returns.
Leprechaun Returns. But I wonder if they would do a straight out remake or Pumpkinhead. You know, that's another
I
one.
am kind of shocked no one's done Pumpkinhead yet.
Right? I like Pumpkinhead. That's a fun movie.
Yeah, I love that movie. I'm honestly surprised they have not remade that.
Yeah.
Or that there wasn't any more sequels either. Like I think it stopped at 4 sequels.
Yeah, maybe it just didn't have the pull, I guess.
Well, I mean, every one of them I think went straight to sci-fi TV. So yeah, they.
Oh yeah, that kind of slows down your choo-choo train.
Yeah.
Yeah, it you know, it will be interesting. I think for our next one we should watch The Thing from Another Planet and then the remake of The Thing. Like I think we should do all three.
Oh, like The Thing from Another Planet, The Thing, and then The Thing prequel from 2011.
Oh wait, that's a prequel, right?
Yeah.
Okay, then we'll just do The Thing from Another Planet and then The Thing remake.
I like the idea of that, and I was thinking Maniac and the Maniac remake.
Prom
Piranha,
Night.
Prom Night, Piranha.
Yep. Piranha Double D's.
Yeah, I was like, I actually wrote down a big list on my notepad of like all like remakes of singleton horror films, or like ones that only had like 1 or 2 movies. So I'll send
Nice.
that to you so we can kind of pick through them.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about Prom Night.
The
Not
Suspiria.
because I think Prom Night. Oh, Suspiria. Yes, Suspiria.
We got to
for
talk
sure.
about that one.
Yes. Do you hear that, Dave Z? Suspiria. Man, I don't know about Prom Night. Like, I want to watch Prom Night. I know you're not gonna like it, but it's such a little fun slasher.
Yeah, it's one of those movies that I already know I'm probably just gonna be like, what the fuck? But at the same time, like the original didn't blow me away, but I am also like didn't hate it either.
Oh, remember when you told me it was boring?
Yeah, I rewatched it and still a little boring, but it's
You're like still boring.
but it's better than I originally gave it credit for.
That's really funny. Well, I think you know, we've ranted about remakes. This episode went a lot longer than we thought it was going to. We
Yeah.
apologize in advance. This is what happens when you watch 12 fucking movies. But we wanted to give a fair comparison and state our very, very needed and valued opinions that I'm sure everyone is very concerned about hearing. But we will join you next time for our next remake episode. We won't do any research beforehand because obviously we've already talked about it. We'll probably just get right into the films, and maybe we'll do 7 films or 6 films. We usually do 6.
Yeah.
Because that's a lot of movies. And yeah, we'll see how these singleton ones pulled it off. But until then, do you have anything else you want to add, Scotty?
Yes, I do actually. A few things. First,
dear.
I want to give a plug and say, please go to the Legion Podcast Patreon page and subscribe if you can, and even if it's just a couple bucks. Like Heather and I had said in the very beginning, we are doing content for that place. We will be doing. I think we have a couple things lined up for you that you will all enjoy.
Oh, we sure do.
Also, go to www.legionpodcast.com and subscribe, like, and share as much as you can, just to try to help promote the shows a little more. Anything helps, and if you can, go and rate and review your favorite podcast from this network, just to help them out too. Like, you can't really rate and review us technically because we're under Kill the Cast, but you could rate and review Kill the Cast. They are a great show, and just go ahead and promote them. But yeah, just show your Legion loyalty and show some love. But until next time, unpleasant dreams.
Good night. Watch more remakes.